Hello and welcome to this commentary for Onimusha. I'll be speaking to you after the intro.
And die with honor! Has finally engaged the enemy. I will save Princess Yuki.
Dear Samanosuke, I am writing this letter in the hopes you will read this in time to help. Something is wrong within the Inabayama castle. Some of the maids and servants have gone missing, and I fear that it might be the work of monsters. I am so scared, Samanosuke. People tell me that the monsters eat the maids and servants and then take their remains to someplace deep underground. When I told my brother Yoshitatsu about this, he did not seem interested. He is too busy preparing for his upcoming battle with Nobunaga. Samanosuke, although it has been a few years since we were forced to take separate paths, due to the battle between my father Dosen and my brother Yoshitatsu, you are still the only one that I can rely upon. I can only hope that you receive this letter and that you will find it in your heart to come and save me before it is too late. Yours faithfully, Yuki.
This way, sir. If our princess is at the keep, there are two ways to get there. The western path, or the northern passage.
Kaede, I'll go north. You follow them through the other way.
Understand.
So shortly after starting, just run straight ahead and it won't take long before we come into our first encounter.
Princess Yuki!
So yeah, the assailants didn't exactly get too far. Now, these two enemies you can't actually kill at present. All you can do is hurt them, so just keep attacking them, defend the attacks, and a cutscene will play.
Princess Yuki, Your Highness!
Samanosuke, it's really you. Oh, I knew that you would come to save me. I have missed you so much since you left the castle.
What?
Flee while you can, you worthless bug! Useless! Pitiful humans!
Princess!
Samanosuke. Samanosuke. Wake up, Samanosuke. With your current power, you are not capable of destroying the demons. We will give you our powers. We are the clan of ogres that has been subverted by the demons. Samanosuke, defeat and seal their souls to your right hand. Destroy all the demons!
So, fortune has smiled upon me this day. With the power of this gauntlet, I will destroy all of those monsters and save the princess!
So yeah, with the power of the Ogre clan, we are now able not only to kill the demons, but also absorb their souls. I never fully understood how that kind of meshes, because your partner is able to kill them without the gauntlet, but just try it down to gameplay. That bit always made me a little bit queasy when I was little. There's a few elements of this game that are more horror based than action based, which makes sense given that Capcom was creating Resident Evil around the same time, and it uses the same kind of pre-rendered backgrounds and controls that you'd expect from that, so there's a little bit of crossover. These are the zombie warriors. They make up the most common foe we're going to be encountering. They're pretty weak for the most part, but as you've just saw in that last one there, they can attack when they're dying, so you've got to be a little bit careful with them.
Hurry! Monsters! Close the door, now!
Someone is there!
Get him!
So Samanovsky, either trying to be a badass or forgetting all of his samurai training, decides to get himself surrounded during that little cutscene. So try your best to break your way through the first one. And it's actually more beneficial, and I remember actually being taught this when I used to do kickboxing, that when you're outnumbered, if you can put yourself up against a wall or a corner, normally you don't want to corner yourself, but it does limit the way the enemies can come towards you.
Open the door! I've killed all the monsters!
He killed?
Huh?
What should we do?
You! Ah! Sorry.
We are very sorry. Please forgive us.
What happened to you?
They came out of nowhere and attacked us.
The keep may have also been attacked by them.
The keep is ahead of us that way?
Right. The forest road there is a shortcut to the keep.
I see.
So yeah, counterproductive, I know. I remember when I first got taught that by my teacher, I was just like, I thought you're never meant to get yourself be cornered. But if you're grossly outnumbered, it is actually a good idea too. And that was one of the few times we're going to see Samanovsky actually do the maneuver where he unsheaths his sword and attacks in the same motion, which has become quite synonymous with samurai culture, hasn't it? It's not very often that he actually puts the sword away, and in actual fact, in a relatively short amount of time, we're going to be getting a much more powerful weapon, meaning that this sword, this just general katana, which I'm sure I've offended a bunch of people by saying, oh, it's just any old katana. It's any old katana. Will be replaced relatively shortly, so we're not ever going to use it again. And there's kind of like a weird misconception I see with, I don't mean to be disparaging, but with a certain subsect of weebs are just like, oh, Japanese steel, it's the most brilliant ever. No, actually, minerals in Japan were crap, and they had to use a technique of folding over and over again to make up for how crap their iron resources were. Sogun's note. To the brave one who finds and is reading this document, I ask you to put all other thoughts aside and heed my warnings that are written here within. There is an ogre's gauntlet that draws its power from the souls of those who are killed by demons. Master its secrets, and great powers will be yours. Remember, without the power of the ogres, you are no match for the demons. So that document there, this Seiryu, is one of 4. Technically, if we're going to go be pedantic, there's 16 different books 4 sets of 4 each, and the idea is that you're meant to collect all 4 of them, and by reading through the notes they have and like looking where it's I imagine it doesn't do it in the Japanese version, but looking where the English translates to the Japanese, you can then find the Japanese kanji to unlock puzzles, which will give you some items, which I'm just going to tell you the combination so you don't have to worry about that. So just put that out of your mind. Journal number 1. Master Shogun and I have followed the monster that has been kidnapping people around town and have been led to this cave. The cave seems to be a nest for demons, every kind of monster imaginable, and even ones I never would have believed to exist are here. They call themselves demons. They hate sunlight and seem to have lived underground since before the human race began. My master has already made up his mind to go into the cave. I am confident that my master has the power to dispel the demons. I have a little talent for drawing, and I also have faith and courage, so that I will not be afraid of any monsters. Therefore, I am going to record everything I see. This is going to be the most bizarre book in history. Samuel. So to do that puzzle box, and there's a few of them that are going to be coming up, you want to put the combination in of left, right, left. And this little box here, which usually you'd have to use the little riddle book we just came across, but I'm just going to give the answer. So from left to right, put in 1, 3, 6. So the trick treasure box we came across with the rotating numbers, we come across quite a few of them, and they usually will have something that is kind of quest related, you know, like a key item to progress forward. A couple of times they have some other goodies in there which you don't need to do but will make your life easier, like, you know, stronger armor or something like that. But as we go through it, if you do struggle with any of them, this guide will go through all of them. And then the riddle boxes, so I'm going to try and differentiate them, so I don't think they actually give them a name. You have the trick treasure boxes with the numbers that rotate, and then the riddle boxes, which you normally have to like read the Seiryu or whatever stuff you come up. Usually has either a yellow or a blue gemstone in them. And as we've just seen, the yellow ones increase our maximum vitality, while the blue ones increase our magic power, which will allow us to use some strong special attacks with our magical weapons. And there's going to be 3 we're coming across in the game, although for the most part you're going to see me use this blue one here, the lightning katana, because it has the same moveset as the katana we started with initially, and I just find it's quite a good all-round weapon. It tends to be, as we can see there, very, very devastating against single entity units. So it's really a boss killer, and it's good for individually strong units. But then the normal attacks that you use are kind of a balance between the other ones. So the other weapons we come across, one is slower but does more damage, and then we come across another one that's even quicker than what we have but does less damage. So I find the lightning katana here, and I'm probably gonna call it lightning katana quite a few times, because I believe the actual blade is called Shiden, and then the magical element to it is called Ryzen, and then I always end up just calling it like Raiden, you know, of like the lightning guy from Mortal Kombat. So I'm probably gonna butcher its name, so I'll just say blue sword or katana sword or something. It's very good. It fits right in the middle. It does a decent amount of damage. It's relatively quick. It's not one end of the extreme, and I just find it's a very simple weapon and very effective to use. And we're going to come across our second box here. Normally you wouldn't have all the books to be able to figure this out so early on, but as you have me here, the combination you want to put in is 614, and that will give you a power jewel, a yellow gem, which will give us even more vitality, or health points, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, smash these boxes, grab the medicine, and we're off to our first boss fight.
Didn't know humans could be such pests.
Where is the princess?
Humans are more tasty when angry, and I haven't eaten in a while.
So yeah, Onimusha wastes absolutely no time in throwing you in the deep end. Admittedly, I find, even when I was a kid, that it's not the hardest game, so the boss battles aren't too tough. Like, I've died maybe once or twice, but it wasn't like Ninja Gaiden levels difficulty. The way to do it, as you can see here, is that he'll have these attacks, but even though his mace is massive, you can normally block it. Except which, as you can see now, he's gone into his enraged state, so his skin colour will turn slightly lighter shade of red, and he'll do the little tantrum thing. When he's doing this, he has a number of attacks that will go straight for your block, so just keep the distance from him, trying to keep the fire between you and him, and then just go in to wail on him. If you hold down the right bumper, as if you were playing on a original PlayStation 2 controller, that will lock onto a target. So that allows you to rotate your axis based on him, which, considering it normally uses tank controls like Resident Evil game, you desperately need that. And what I find with the R1 control is if you hold it and move, he does a very quick foot shuffle, but then starts moving normally. So usually what you want to do is lock on and then just quickly keep tapping it to quickly keep doing these foot shuffles, and you get a lot more distance that way. And really that's all there is to it. You, when he starts attacking, block with the left bumper, go in, get a few stabs, and finish him with a magic attack.
How could I die? By the hand of a human!
Be quiet, monster. It is time for you to go back to the underworld.
A lot of confidence in our young Samurai Semonosuke. Not the greatest one-liners though. Journal number 2. I am a sad, pathetic coward, weak, and unworthy of the priesthood. My master was seriously injured during the battle against the demons. I could not do anything. I could not save my master. He asked me to bring his wounded body to the entrance of this cave. Then he began to perform his final ceremonial rites. He made up his mind to offer his life and die there as a human sacrifice. With his remaining powers, he is trying to sacrifice himself and set up barriers at the entrance of the cave so that the demons cannot get out. My master gave me a document and a jewel, and then ordered me to leave the cave. That was the most embarrassing moment of my life. I felt relieved to know that I could come out from the cave. I was too happy to be leaving to be worried about my master. I could only think for myself. Afterwards, I hid the document and the jewel, and I came back to my master's place of sacrifice. I will never have willpower like that of my master. All I can do is learn, as much as a testament of my findings. Now, moving forward, if you smash the vases here and click to the left-hand side, you will come across the second fluorite. Fluorites don't appear as like a blinking icon, so they can be quite hard to find.
Sweet, beautiful, lovely, the dripping blood, and what's this? Oh, a liver. What's that smell? Who's there? A human? How disappointing.
Face me, demon!
Who do you think you are talking to? I haven't seen one as foolish as you since that, Nobunaga.
Nobunaga?
I operated on and resurrected that pitiful Nobunaga after he was killed in Okihazuma. He then made a pact with the demons and pledged his eternal loyalty to serve us forever as our slave.
No!
Oh, yes, it is indeed true. Now, let me show you my most recent creation. Go, Ronaldo! Fight the belly of that maggot and feast upon his bloody flesh!
And that right there is Guildenstern, and like with the previous boss we fought called Osric, a lot of the characters in this game have names based on Shakespeare's Hamlet. So this is Ronaldo, who fortunately is not another boss, but will be reoccurring quite often. Kind of a annoying mid-tier enemy that we'll be facing. And here is the fire orb, which will give us the second Oni weapon we'll get, called the Enmu, or the Kyuan, I think are its names. So the Enmu is the actual sword, and the Kyuan is the fire orb aspect of it. I'm going to call it the fire sword because that's a hell of a lot easier to remember. And the fire sword is based a lot more on kind of a Western weapon. It's kind of a cross between like a bastard sword or maybe like a claymore or something. He tends to hold it in one hand when running around, but when you go to attack, as you can see, he uses two hands to swing it. So yeah, more of a claymore. And this is your heavy damage dealer, as you can kind of see in... Oh, I'm just going to block that going. It does a lot more damage than your lightning sword per swing, but is also slower as a result of that, and only uses a 3-hit combo rather than a 4-hit combo. But one thing you'll find quite useful, as we're going to see you're facing these guys, is that the third hit is, with that being a vertical slash, is quite useful at hitting these. So these are blue skulls, and are possibly the most annoying enemies you'll ever come across in the game. They aren't dangerous in terms of... They can hit you, but it's not that's the biggest threat on them. It's the fact that they will suck up any souls from enemies nearby. Once you kill one, they don't spawn souls themselves, but if one has sucked up some souls and then gets killed, it seems to like add like a slight multiplier on it. And then if a blue skull has had a group of souls for a long enough period of time, or if it's sucked up enough, it spins away, disappears, and you lose all of that. So the pink souls, the blue souls, the yellow souls, all of it will take. And this is what the pink souls are used for, which is the most common one we come across. It's like experience, I guess, which we can use to upgrade our weapons. And as you can see with the weapons, there are two aspects to them. So the top one, like the Raiden, will be the actual sword itself, which means that the sword will do more damage on its normal attacks. The second slot, where it says like the Raizen or the Enryu, is the actual magical component of your weapon. So when you use your magical attack, it will do more damage now. So it will find if ever we do use the lightning magic attack, it will hit for more times, do more damage. And in addition to that, you'll notice every now and then, like with the, as you can see there, yeah, it hits a few more times, does a little bit more damage. Sometimes when we try to move through doors, there'll be like this weird kind of congealed fleshy stuff of a different color. And in order to go through that, you have to have the corresponding weapon attached to it. And the ones that we've come across so far, it's just like a single node, but then later on they'll have 2 or even 3 nodes. So in order to go through those areas, you need to upgrade the orb aspect of your sword, not the actual damage aspect. So you'll notice that I upgrade that first, just because I feel like the damage you do usually is okay normally. And if ever you're going to be struggling... Oh, that one got me. If ever you're going to be struggling with like an part of the game, it's usually on the bigger enemies. So if you have a stronger magic attack, you just blow them out of the water. And also, I wasn't entirely certain, just from remembering, when the different nodes appeared, so I just level up the magical element to it first, just to make sure that I didn't ever get locked out of an area and have to go do some backtracking or some farming, because that's not going to make for a good walkthrough, is it? And this is the keep, where we will be spending a lot of our game fighting in and around. Now, this is another enemy who I consider to be kind of a mid-tier enemy. I don't know their exact name, I just refer to them as the Red Samurai because of the armor they're wearing. And they're mid-tier because they do a lot of damage, and they have grab attacks, so blocking doesn't always work.
Stop! Let me go!
Quiet!
What is going on here?
Stop!
Who are you? And what do you want with that boy?
I should ask you the same thing. You are not working for Saito clan, are you? Wait. Can you be Samanosuke Akechi? Yes, you are. I cannot believe you are here of all places. I am a servant of the Oda clan. My name is Tokichiro Kinoshita.
This man will eventually conquer the world under the name Hideyoshi Toyotomi.
What is a servant of the Oda clan doing here?
Wait, first we must talk business. Tell me, Samonosuke, are you interested in serving our clan? My Lord Nobunaga Oda would welcome a great samurai like yourself.
I serve no one. My life is mine and mine alone to command.
I see. However, I will not give up yet. We shall meet again.
So that's meant to be Hideyoshi Toyotomi, someone who, like Nobunaga Oda, did actually exist in real life. In fact, he's known as one of the first unifiers of Japan. Anyways, we're going to go in here and get Journal 3. I am starving. I wonder how many days have passed since I entered this cave. My only source of sustenance has been some water leaking out of the wall. I followed the smell of blood and came here. Normally I would not have been able to smell it, but hunger seems to have sharpened my senses. That is why I am now watching something I could not have imagined in even my worst nightmares. Ah, what a sight. Demons are eating human prisoners alive. They pay no attention to their victims' screams. They just crunch the bones and chew up the flesh. I am standing still, just watching the scene, so as not to be spotted by the demons. No, that is not exactly what I had in mind. I am watching a person's finger lying on the ground. When a person dies, its body becomes only meat. I'm afraid of what I am thinking about. I am like a wild scavenger that waits expectantly for the scraps of food that the tiger leaves behind. What an evil desire I am having. Yeah, I found a lot of Japanese media seems to depict some of its historical figures in kind of strange ways. And I guess we, kind of do the same. I mean, I think Anne Boleyn is going to be a lady of colour now because reasons, I guess. But Nobunaga Oda is a really interesting one because depending on what depiction you have, he's usually portrayed as a very charismatic, upstanding general who helped to unify Japan and was cut down before his prime, or as he's represented in Onimusha and things like Samurai Warriors, is like a demon prince, is like someone who's like tyrannical and evil. So the actual reality is probably somewhere in the middle.
Samanosuke, is there something you wanted to ask this young man?
Do not be afraid.
No! You want to hurt me like that other samurai did.
That is not true. Please, tell me your name.
I am Yumimaru.
Yumimaru, you must tell me. What did that samurai want with you?
Why should I know?
Fine, then why are you here? Who brought you here? Go after him while I look for Princess Yuki.
I will.
There are fucking demons around here, you little shit. How the hell have you not been killed? One of those things with Resident Evil games, you often have characters, even like Shirley Birkin, run off and be completely fine. And, well, Onimusha draws quite heavily from Resident Evil. So, it continues that tradition. So that was a counter-attack, which you can perform if you attack just before an enemy does, which I find to be quite difficult to pull off, but if you are able to pull them off successfully, you'll notice that it drops more souls. So usually these low-tier zombie-type samurai only drop 1 pink soul, they drop 2 and a yellow of doing that. So for this one, we're going to go left, right, and right. And that will give us a bow, which is going to be very handy when we come across the flying blue skull assholes that I was struggling to hit earlier, and the Suzaku a little bit further. Now, do not cut that rope. What you want to do is move around to the corner and you'll be picking up a fluorite, one of 20 in the game. I think we've already picked up a few of them. I'll try to make sure they're put in the timestamps below. And the reason we didn't cut the rope is if we come to the bucket here, we will get a power jewel. If we cut the rope, then the bucket would fall and we wouldn't be able to pick it up until much, much later in the game. So, you know, we just get it a little bit quicker this way. So the fluorites are items that if you collect all 20 will unlock the Oni Spirits minigame, of which there will be a guide on my channel. And yeah, it's just like a little extra minigame you come across. They're a pain in the ass to find because unlike other items, there won't be a little twinkle to kind of give you a hint of where they are. You kind of just need to know it. So again, I'll make sure that there is timestamps to those locations. And now we're going to come in here and we are going to read the Red Book. Red Book. I remembered that there were other animals that chose a similar fate to Nobunaga. When I remember something, I should write it down, because my brain has too many things to think about. It shouldn't be wasted on such trivial matters. My number one priority must be producing things for our demon species, not remembering things. I will write it down here and forget about the information. The animal was called Genghis Alexander. Never mind. The names of animals do not have any meaning for us. These animals fought extensive battles and managed to continue fighting to expand their territories. They are considered extremely heroic and exceptional warriors. But in truth, they offered large numbers of sacrifices to us to obtain our technology and weapons. Wise animals can be destined to conquer the world by making a contract with the demons, while the stupid ones simply get sacrificed. I should say, demons flourish in the zoo. So yeah, as we've just seen, the bow is very useful because a couple of times throughout the game, and I completely did not mean to hit the zombie there, I was trying to hit the big boy. A couple of times throughout the game, you will notice that there are people that you can save. You've already come across a few of them, and not all the time you're going to be in the same room as them. So if we had tried to just run down and save them, chances are they're probably going to be dead by the time we get there. But if you use the bow from the top floor to take out the ones that they're fighting, you can then go down and speak to them and pick up the items they've picked up. It's not necessary, it's not like story related items. They usually just drop like a little bit of healing, like some herbs or some medicine or maybe some arrows or bullets. But you know, and yeah, they've already bugged out of here, and I don't blame them, quite frankly. But yeah, a magic jewel, very, very useful. So we want to make sure we can grab that to actually get the maximum amount of mana. I keep saying mana. Oh, I don't know. It doesn't really describe it as mana, but I guess it is. And the maximum amount of health we can. So be sure to come back there. Not vital, but if you're watching a walkthrough, I'm assuming you want to pick up all the goodies you can. And obviously, I say obviously, it's not obvious actually, because they didn't do it so much in Resident Evil, but this game has a lot more in the way of respawning enemies if you have to backtrack. And you can kind of get away with it a lot more because in Resident Evil, obviously you tend to have a limited ammunition. I do apologize, I keep referring to Resident Evil, but it's so similar to it in the same way that like Dino Crisis is pretty much just like an offshoot of Resident Evil. Like they're all made by Capcom. Resident Evil is the one in the middle, and then these are kind of offshoots which took their own ideas. Admittedly, Onimusha had quite a few successful games, and the further along you go in the Onimusha series, the more it starts to become its own thing. Onimusha 1 was very much just seen as Resident Evil, but with samurais instead of police officers, and demons instead of zombies, even though you have some zombies as well. So we're just going to make our way to the second floor and make our way through there. The area on the bottom floor where I picked up the magic, there's a couple of those throughout the section, throughout the game, and picking up, well, going into those rooms will allow you to replenish your magic. So you can be quite generous with using these attacks. Like, you don't just want to save them specifically for bosses and stuff. A lot of big enemies makes short work of, and sometimes if you just want to get through an area, it just makes life easy. You don't have to like save up. I think the game is quite designed around using them relatively frequently, because when you're low on mana, you're more likely to get blue essence or blue souls, and it always feels like a waste if you're getting blue souls and you're already max charge. So, you know, try to use that quite a lot. So there's another Fluorite there. Going to pick up a few more goodies, and we are going to be entering into kind of a puzzle section. So I would recommend, if you're not too familiar with Onimusha, to save it now, because it's very easy to get an instant death in the puzzles coming up.
I have been able to uncover Yumemaru's identity. He is the son of a farmer.
What?
4 years ago, his parents were killed at war. Princess Yuki found him crying alone and brought him to the castle.
I see.
And I also heard that Princess Yuki raised him as if he were her own brother.
So he stole his way into the castle to save Princess Yuki. Why then is Tokuchiro after Yumemaru?
Something seems to be going on. What? Oh. Samanosuke, we must find a way out.
Yes.
So the first puzzle slash trap that we're going to come across is this one, where you will alternate between taking control of Samanosuke and Kaede to activate these levers. And as out of all of the traps you're going to come across, this is by far the easiest. So just move Kaede to open the first one, and then you move Samanosuke to open the second lever, and this will keep it open. Do not activate the middle lever out of these three, as it will cause an arrow to drop down and you take some damage. It's not much, and that's pretty much the only threat in this area, but I think it's just to warm you up. With that lever open, we can go and get the holy armor, which I'm assuming has been blessed with some kind of ogre magic or something. I don't like the fact that it's fully golden. I mean, I'm just assuming that it has like a gold alloy or a gold tint to it, because gold is a very soft metal and makes very, very terrible armor. So with that all completed, we'll go to the next room, where you want to use the magic attack of your fire sword to light the candles. And there's plenty of mana here just so you can replenish that. Not really a puzzle. Well, I guess it kind of is, but a very, very simple one to solve. Now, this room, the third room, does have instant deaths. So you can kind of see from the way it's organized, if you go on a cross or you go on a just kind of like noughts and crosses, if you go on the diagonal cross, it will cause spikes to sprout out. And if you happen to hit your partner, it is an instant death, so be very careful. It is procedurally generated, so you can't just memorize the area, but if you just take your time and think through it logically, it's not too hard. And you can come off a cross and go back onto it to progress forward like that, and it's not too difficult to do.
I wonder what this room is. Samanosuke! What happened? Are you all right?
I seem to be trapped.
Is there a way you can get out of there? Samanosuke, wait there. I will help you.
I mean, I don't think Samanosuke really has a choice in waiting there or not, but this puzzle right here is why I told you to save before we started this, and was an absolute run killer when I was younger. And it's quite frustrating, because if you fail it, you have to go back and do all the previous puzzles to get back here, to even have another shot at it. So what we want to do is move these crests into the middle, and the way to do this is to move one of them forward, left once, the other one left once, and then you want to put these pieces in the middle and do the last section of moving them both together, that last piece. You'll find that the most important part of this section is the two single pieces, and if you end up moving both of them over twice, then you don't have the space to move them in. It's a very, very frustrating puzzle, and one that is not clear at all, but hopefully if you follow what this does and slow the video if you need to, you should be able to get through it without too much difficulty. So yeah, probably didn't look too difficult just from like watching a walkthrough when someone has gone away specifically because knew that puzzle was a pain and practiced it. But if you've ever played this game in the past, or if you emulate it or go back and play it now, I'm sure you'll agree with me, that puzzle is an absolute bitch.
We are safe now. I will go search for clues.
Fine.
So that section, I think, was not just to change up the kind of gameplay we've had so far. It's kind of like a tradition when it comes to Capcom games with like Resident Evil or Dino Crisis to throw a few puzzles in there. Dino Crisis, I think, had more emphasis on the puzzles, at least the first one, and Onimusha obviously has more emphasis on the action side of things. But it's not just to give you some puzzles, but also to give you an opportunity to play through as Kaede, however briefly you did get that opportunity, because we're going to get the opportunity to play with her a little bit later on, so just to give you a little bit of a taste of things to come. So we're going to move through here and pick up the power jewel, give us a little bit more health, open up that shortcut into the rest of the castle, and we're going to move forward where we will come across journal number 4. Journal 4. Ah, what a wonderful scene. I am very happy to be here. I am so moved that my hand won't stop trembling. I am witnessing the birth of a demon baby as it is pulled out of the bottle. Human blood and evil essence are mixed in the bottle, and then a demon is born. What a supernatural sight. No other creature in the world is born in this way. Were there any artists that encountered the scene that I have just witnessed, I wonder? I have never felt so much regret for my poor painting skills. Stop trembling, my dear hand. I am aware that all of the truth that I must record completely depends on my hands. But I can't help trembling.
Yumimaru!
Hey, Samanosuke! We meet again. So, have you decided to serve the Oda clan?
Move!
It is too late for the boy. And since you have learned that our Lord Nobunaga will rule the world with the demons, you should not bark up the wrong tree.
You're insane! What you are doing will lead to innocent people being used as food for the demons.
The strong will prey upon the weak. Farmers obey samurai, and humans obey demons.
You arrogant fool!
Our dark ceremony will take place soon. Princess Yuki's skull will be filled with her own blood. And when our Lord Nobunaga drinks it, the victory of the Oda clan over the Saito clan will be guaranteed! Ah! See you again, Samanosuke!
I have to admit, this was one of the earliest examples I can think of where the weapons or armor you're wearing actually carry over to the cutscenes. A lot of the older PlayStation 1 games, they would just resort to a very standard mode because they couldn't animate all those extra additions. So make sure you check the desk here for Fluorite, move forward and block immediately, because behind those curtains is a ninja waiting to just dash out at you. I do find those ninjas to be one of the more annoying enemies you're going to come across, just because of their speed, and not even just their speed, but more their unpredictability. I find if you play through games similar like this, games that I'm not going to mention because every journalist always mentions it. But the difficulty comes not through an enemy having a fast attack or necessarily a... Well, okay, sometimes it can be fast attack, especially if it's not choreographed. But I suppose that's more the element. Unchoreographed attacks or faster attacks, you'll struggle with a lot more. So as a rule of thumb, I tend not to like using the fire sword against these guys. I find that it's just a little bit too slow. I mean, none of the weapons that Samanosuke uses are slow. Even the fire sword is still relatively quick, but just the couple of extra frames you're going to lose is just... Not ideal against these guys. Again, it's better suited to slightly larger enemies, and well, also the fact that when you swing with it, you have a very wide arc. It can usually hit several guys standing close to each other, so it can do a bit of AoE damage despite the fact that it is your heavy hitter. Whereas the lightning sword is the one that I tend to fall back on most of the time. Just because I like its moveset, but it's also probably the best 1v1 sword, or perhaps best dueling sword would be a better way of describing that. And it's useful even against multiple enemies, because even relatively short attacks, like quick attacks that the lightning sword does, will stun lock most enemies. So as long as you just focus on your spacing, you can use it even against multiple enemies. And this leads us to our second fight, and also what I consider one of the coolest. Like, you're having a duel on top of the rooftop. It's just such a cool set piece. So this rather hefty individual is called Marcellus, and is actually the first of 2 times we're going to fight him. A little bit of a spoiler for later, but not really. He literally doesn't say a word. He is our unnamed antagonist. So what you want to do, as I kind of mentioned in the Osric fight, is that when you first move, when you're locked onto an enemy, so you hold the R1 button to lock on, you do a very quick step and then you start walking normally. So what you want to do is keep moving your directional buttons to quickly move around him. And I find the best thing to do is to use the fire sword for the first part of the fight. So he uses a shield, and if you can get around to the side on him, you can do some hefty damage to him. However, if you hit the shield enough times, it will break. And I find the fire sword is just better at dealing that kind of damage to him. Now, you do have to be a little bit careful. You want to try and avoid his attacks if you can, and only block if you feel like you're not going to be able to get it off in time. And a big reason for that is he has a few combos that he can use. Well, normally when he comes down and then follows up with it, where the first attack will break your guard and then the second one will deal damage. So try to use movement first, blocking second. And as you can see, he's not too well equipped. Once he loses his shield, he still will have his hand up, blocking, even though it's not there. And once his shield is out, you can just unleash on him with your lightning sword. So I find the flame sword is good, not only because it does some hefty damage, so it's quicker to break through the shield, but also the flame magic attack you can do with it will be able to hit even through the shield, whereas the lightning attack is mostly going to get absorbed by the shield. So save it for the second section, and then just go to town on Marcellus. And he's quite generous in the fact that he will drop blue souls, so it gives you an opportunity to recharge your attack, and then just fight him as standard. He takes quite a beating, but he should go down. So with Marcellus defeated, we get our third and not final weapon for the entire game, because we still have a couple of few side ones, but the final of the 3 main elemental weapons we're going to get. The Shippu, or the Arashi, which I'm probably never going to say again. I'll probably always refer to this as either the double-ended sword, the funky naginata, or the wind sword. Probably just the wind sword. Wind sword, fire sword, lightning sword. Probably the easiest way to remember what I'm referring to. So the Arashi, as you can kind of see, is in terms of raw damage output, is going to be the weakest out of all of them, but is the fastest, as you would probably imagine from a double-bladed weapon. And a really strong benefit of them is when you're trying to deal with crowd control. Because you have that second blade on the end, if you're hitting an enemy up front, it will still spin the second blade round, and you can usually hit multiple opponents at the same time. So it's a very good crowd control weapon, and that's only exemplified by its magic attack, which we will see later, which is a tornado, which is just brilliant. But a good tactic now that you have all three is to switch between these weapons, because every time you gain blue souls, it will actually recharge all your weapons, not just the one you have equipped.
My sister, please save her.
Don't worry, you're safe now.
Please, you have to save her.
I give you my word. I will save Princess Yuki. Kaede, do you know why Princess Yuki took care of this boy? Princess Yuki was born the daughter of a feudal lord, and thus raised for an arranged marriage. She has had no freedom whatsoever. So when she meets someone else who's in need, she wants to help them. In this world, only the strong survive.
Samanosuke.
Let me tell you about the ways of the world, Yamamaru.
The world?
"4 years ago, my uncle Mitsuhide pressured me to leave and see the world. I have met people who speak and look different than us. I have experienced things that I never would have imagined. There are infinite things that we do not understand. There is beauty and freedom all around us. You owe it to yourself and everyone to see these things and then share them with the people of this country. You must help them to understand the absurdity of fighting over such small portions of land on this tiny island."
Help!
Who are you?
My name is Nui. I serve Princess Hatsu. Princess Yuki is underground. Oh!
You all right? Kaede, we have little time. I have to find Princess Yuki. You watch over these two.
I will.
So yeah, apologies there about the FMV kind of cutting in and out. I believe it's one of the issues I have with playing this with an emulator. In fact, one of the later cutscenes in the game I completely couldn't get working, and ended up having to find another video and kind of splice it into my own. That one, however, I couldn't seem to get working, so it kind of fades into like the FMV and then back out to black. I do apologise. I hope you still like got the gist of what was happening. There was a few problems trying to get this working on emulator actually. It was either for a case that it would stutter, or sometimes there was a certain setting on the PS2, then you'd be able to see enemies through walls, because, well, a lot of the walls are pre-rendered backgrounds, so you just see them through it as if that wall didn't exist, which was kind of gave you a little bit of an unfair advantage, and also kind of like messed with your ability to figure out where enemies were meant to be and your depth perception. So yeah, I fixed that, but unfortunately it had a knock-on effect with the FMV. So anyway, with our 3 magical weapons, our completed arsenal in tow, we are tasked with going into the basement / underground section of the castle, which, as you can probably see right here, I am completely ignoring to do, because if you were eagle-eyed enough, you may have noticed that when we saved Yumimaru up on the top floor castle room, there was a box. That was the wrong room I didn't mean to go into. There was a box that you could clearly see in the cutscene, but yet doesn't give you an opportunity to actually pick it up. It just teleports you down to have the cutscene on the ground floor. So we're just going to quickly head back up to go pick it up. Obviously, it's not vital to do. The item you pick up is 10 burst bullets, which are actually quite powerful. So I consider it, you know, it only takes like a couple minutes to go grab it, and there's a few enemies on the way to kill, so you get a few extra souls, so might as well go for it. Later on, an event happens which ends up destroying a significant portal of the castle. So if you do not collect the bullets by that point, then they're unobtainable. So the best thing to do is just to go ahead and grab them straight away, just so you don't forget. And it also gives you an opportunity to pad out a little bit on the kills and a few more souls on the way. In order to get the S rank for this game, you need to kill over 600 enemies, which you will find if you're just running through it and you actually know where you're going because you've played it before. Actually hitting that target is quite difficult. In fact, when I wouldn't say speed run, but when I've just tried to go through the game very quickly, A to B, and not done a lot of the side stuff, ended up, and bearing in mind this wasn't me like running past enemies, this was still me killing every enemy in every room I came across. I actually only ended up killing about 320. So in order to hit that limit, you either need to do a little bit of backtracking, or you need to do a gauntlet style, not arcade game, but a gauntlet style challenge towards the later end of the game, which I'll talk about a little more when we get there. But for now, we've picked up our burst bullets and we got hit by an enemy off screen. One of the problems with playing an action game with a fixed camera point of view, which I'm fairly certain for the later Onimushas they ended up getting rid of because they just realised it wasn't the best way to play it. Kind of similar with Devil May Cry games. The earlier ones, it wasn't quite fixed. The camera wasn't as fluid as it is in later games. I think it's probably the best way to save myself technically saying something wrong. The cameras did have fixed angles at certain points and were kind of awkward here and there. And then the later editions just completely got rid of them, and you can like control them free moving. Because when you're playing a arcade game like that, well, not an arcade game, but like a hack and slash action game like that, you need to be able to see what you're doing. Onimusha, I find, especially considering this game came out around 2001, 2002, probably benefits more from the fixed camera angles because, well, the backgrounds look really good by comparison. I mean, the models, they're not awful considering. Some of them, oh, I got tagged twice there. Not awful considering, but, you know, and they've done a few HD remasters if you want to do that. In fact, I think they came out with one quite recently, and I remember this because I actually had I say surge in views. Surge in regards to my channel in views after the remake came out. So now this is one of the areas where the wind sword would be very useful if I had any magic for it. So as you probably noticed when I use the attack, not only is it a really helpful AoE attack, but because it creates a tornado all around you. And yeah, I was trying to juke that archer out and completely failed, but we're wearing strong samurai armor, so that arrow ain't going to do shit to us. With it creating a kind of tornado, it allows you to hit enemies above us, and it also kind of like goes through walls. So if we were to activate it when we were below him, the tornado would cut through the railings that he's on and be able to kill him. So yeah, we're just going to take this opportunity to grab some magic because we're quite depleted and everything. And there's no point not to if we're going to go and fight some more. And, well, as you can see, one of these Minotaur-like demons. I believe according to the wiki, they're called a Barabazu. But going through the wiki, I have no idea where they've actually got the names from. So I'm not sure if there are actually text files that say that, or in some of the later ones they kind of expand upon what they're actually called, or if someone on the wiki just likes writing his own fan fiction. I have no idea. For instance, these creatures that we're coming across right now are apparently called bazoos, whereas I tend to just refer to them as the spinny demons. Again, I have no idea how reliable the wiki is on that, so I'm not going to even attempt to use the actual names of the enemies because I didn't come across any of them in the files on Onimusha, and I played this game a hell of a lot growing up, so I just referred to them by what they tend to do. Spinny demons, zombie demons, red samurai, like those are the names that I give them, and I think they're a little bit easier if I start just pulling out words that don't mean anything. I don't think you're going to understand what I'm referring to, so there's not a huge amount of point in doing that now, is there? That said, the few names I do remember are the ones actually spoken in game, like the Ronaldo, the tentacled-like creature that Guildenstern set upon us when we first encountered them, and there's quite a few of them as we descend into the basement. These creatures can be quite annoying because they can split the first time you fight them, and then each of their duplicates can split. So from one you can get 4, and you can quickly get kind of overwhelmed with them. Blue Book. What an incredible animal this Nobunaga is. Normal animals would have already been dead for sure from such a large transfusion of demon blood. I do not understand how the holy blood of the demons could be compatible with the body of a pathetic animal. It's very annoying. Moreover, this Nobunaga is highly intelligent and ambitious. I wasn't the slightest bit surprised when he resurrected his body. He pledged loyalty to Master Fortinbras without showing any fear, and he just made a contract to sacrifice his own species. He is an animal that should not be underestimated. Anyway, if Nobunaga keeps offering sacrifices, we will not run out of guinea pigs for our experiments. So there are a lot of Ronaldo in the basement, and usually I'd recommend trying to use magic, but obviously that's not always available. In those situations, what you want to do is you use the fire sword. If you hold down the R1 button, push forward and attack, you usually do a vertical slice, which decreases the chance of them splitting into more versions. It can also work on the lightning sword, but tends to never work with the wind sword, so don't use them on Ronaldo. Green Book. Is it impossible to obtain the blood of a sacrifice? A dark ceremony is the holiest and darkest ritual that can be carried out between the demons and the pitiful animals. In the dark ceremony, the blood is taken from a chosen sacrifice. Then the Demon King bestows his evil blessing upon it. Once the animal that wants to make a contract as a boss animal drinks the blood from a grail made from a human skull, the evil powers will be given to him. But nobody has solved the mystery of why the evil power is given to the animal for the ceremony. I want to know the answer. Why does no one understand my frustration? Once the mystery of the ceremony has been solved, the knowledge will make the demon species evolve so much. I believe I am the only one who can solve the mystery, and yet I am forced to waste my time doing things which won't bring me the truth. I just need one drop of blood. I wish Nobunaga would leave some blood after he has drunk it in the ceremony. Orange Book. To carry out the contract with Nobunaga, we have unleashed a large amount of evil energy from Inabayama Castle for several days now, but it seems the amount was insufficient. I found out we need to tighten the seal around the surrounding district of Inabayama Castle and fill the district with the evil energy. We have to sacrifice a girl who is born of that land and who has a pure heart. A girl has already been chosen, Princess Yuki. She's a fair complexioned person with long hair. She has beautiful internal organs, especially the heart. I can't help thinking about her organs. They are the best of the best. However, if I take advantage of her, she will be worthless as a sacrifice for the dark ceremony, and if that happens, I will be eaten alive by the king. I have to give her up. Once the dark ceremony is over, every life, including those in the surrounding area, will be lost. In short, we will not have to worry about the materials for my experiments for a while. So with the bell acquired, we can go back to the room which seemed to have been covered in like a ghostly entities from previously to make our way through. Be careful again of these Ronaldos. Fortunately, when they do that ground attack, which can somehow go through solid concrete, just go with it. They are a little bit vulnerable, so you can kind of close the gap in on them there. The Ronaldo, one of the big reasons why they're such a pain in the arse is their attacks can often kind of wrap around your sword, with them being like tentacles and stuff. So even if you're blocking, there's quite a few attacks they can use to bypass that block and tag you and still deal damage. I think there's even one that like kind of grabs your sword. And you'll notice that enemies that can bypass your block tend to be the ones that are higher on the priority list of being major threats. So the Ronaldo, the Minotaur-like guys have a combo that can hit you. And as well as these annoying motherfuckers, the Red Samurai type enemies have a grab attack. And when you're in a close proximity to them like this, it can be extremely dangerous. Like this room is just filled with them and is one of the more dangerous areas of the game. You often notice when I'm fighting them, I either just try and do what I just did there, which is use a magic attack to just not have to deal with them, or I'll usually go in, hit them a few times and then quickly get some distance to avoid the grab attack, just because they are very dangerous. So again, spacing, very, very useful when fighting them. That's usually the two defensive options you have, is either spacing or a block. And if you've played any other kind of like fighting games like Devil May Cry or anything like that, it should come relatively natural to you after you've played around with it for a little bit. And yeah, these tentacles are weird, but they just provide a free source of souls, so take advantage of them while you can. White Book. I have categorized the demons as follows. Low-class demons. Their intelligence is very basic and immature. They do not use language. They wander about for a victim under the cover of night and sometimes eat pitiful animals. They abide by the rules of the Dark Realm and obey orders from the higher demons. They serve the higher class for life. They are very loyal, but their behavior is very similar to insects. Middle-class demon. Larger than the low-class demons, they have enough intelligence to speak a sort of babbling language. Based on my research, their behavior is wild and ferocious, very similar to the basic instincts of the animals. High-class demon. Like Fortinbras and I, this type of demon is extremely intelligent and is responsible for building the high-level civilization. Based on my calculations, the birth rate of the high-class demon is only 1 in 100,000. That means that we are the true chosen ones. We are supposed to conduct the research to the high-class demons through surgical dissection, but it is almost impossible to obtain a sample, as they're very rare. Someday, I will find out with my own hand. So now that we have the Rosary of Communication, you'll see these wisps above dead bodies, which will allow you to hear the final thoughts of that dead individual. Moving forward, go to the mystery box, go middle, right, left, and from it you will obtain the blue key, which we will need a little bit later on. Apocalypse 1. The Dark Ceremony is a traditional holy ritual in the Dark Realm. Through this ceremony, demons make a contract with a human. Obtaining sacrifices by making a contract is indispensable for the Dark Realm. To carry out the Dark Ceremony, a woman who is born of that land and noble in heart must be proffered as a sacrifice. Our king sanctifies her blood with an evil blessing. Then, using her skull as a grail, a person drinks the blood, and the contract is complete. So with that, that's pretty much everything in the basement more or less done. Just take out any Ronaldo that you happen to face down here. And fortunately, we making our way out because this place is littered with some of the tougher enemies. Move to the end of the room and make sure you don't forget to pick up the fluorite right at the end of the corridor behind this red samurai, as it's just such a pain in the ass to come back later if you miss it. Other than that, use your blue key to enter through the doors and continue onwards.
We meet again, Samanosuke.
Hmm?
Still no interest in coming to work for the Oda clan?
For the last time, no!
I tried my best to help you. You just do not understand the true power of the demons. The time has come, demons! Prepare for the dark ceremony! Now you will suffer the consequences of your actions. I am sure by now, Kaede is in trouble.
Samanosuke, did you find anything?
What are you doing? Let go of me!
Samanosuke?
How dare you!
You are not experienced enough, are you?
Yumemaru? Yumemaru, where are you? Are you alright? What happened?
Monsters from West Prison.
So I'm just going to throw it out there before we progress any further. I'm fairly certain that getting knocked out by a body shot is anatomically impossible unless you're rendered to be under so much pain that the pain itself causes you to pass out. Then I don't see it happening, and I don't see how getting an uppercut to the diaphragm is, you know, yeah, it's going to take the wind out of you, but it's not going to take out, you know, a trained ninja like Kaede. But, you know, we'll just put it down for plot reasons. I don't know why Stylado, and that is the name of the discount Samanosuke, Stylado didn't go for the head, because you know, if you go for the head, that's a little bit more believable that you knock someone out. Not that when you knock someone out, you're unconscious for like an hour, like you see in like the James Bond movies and whatnot. But you know, at least it's a little bit more believable that, you know, she was knocked unconscious, disorientated, whatever. But yeah, what's happened is discount Samanosuke, Stylado, and I may interchange those names, I may forget which one is which, has taken Yumemaru hostage, and now is, and well, also Samanosuke actually, and it is up to our plucky sidekick Kaede to progress the story forward. Now, a lot of her techniques are quite similar to that of Samanosuke's. So if you attack just normally, she'll do a 4-hit combo. And if you press back and attack at the same time, you will do a kick attack, which can floor enemies the same way that Samanosuke's kick attack has. There are a few key differences, the first one being that, and that's a couple of areas that I really actually prefer Kaede over Samanosuke. So whenever Kaede knocks an enemy down, she'll do the stab attack the same way that Samanosuke does it. However, for whatever fucking reason, Samanosuke will really labour the point of punching his sword down through the enemy, picking it up and then wiping his sword, which means Finishing an enemy while they're on the ground when there's other enemies around is usually very ill-advised because he takes a good 2 to 3 seconds to finish the animation, at which point he is vulnerable throughout the whole process. Kaede, being a nimble ninja and also not a retard, once she knocks someone down, and you can quite easily knock these ones down with the kick attack, as you can see, quickly does a very quick stab forward and then jumps back, getting out of harm's way. So her stab attack is a hell of a lot quicker and a hell of a lot more usable in tight situations than Samanosuke's is. And the other one that she has, as you just saw there, so when you move forward, you can do a kind of lunge attack, but like that. But if you time it and move forward and attack at the same time, you will do this backflip where she defies the laws of physics and can jump over even a red samurai. And this is why I think Kaede is a more advanced character to try and get the hang of, and also makes sense that you take control of her second. She can't just press a magic button and take out things like the red samurai. She has to use her combos a lot more effectively, and we're just I always love that, he just kills his buddy. She has to use her combos a lot more effectively, and if you can use them effectively, she's very, very strong. So when you do the jump over attack, like we've just seen when we were fighting the red samurai there, and attack immediately afterwards, she will do an instant kill move. So even if he's at full health, you can one-shot the red samurai by using that attack, which is a technique I did not even realize was available. Like when I was a kid, I was too fat-fingered to figure out all different combos. I didn't really play fighting games, so I just kind of button mashed, admittedly. But it's what makes taking out some of those tougher enemies, I wouldn't say doable, you can do it without it, but a lot easier, and in actual fact, if you time it right, almost a joy to just flip over and do these one-hit kills. So this is the next riddle box. For that, you want to press 5, 7 and 2, and from that we're going to be getting a magic jewel, which is completely worthless on Kaede, but we can keep hold of it and give it to Samanosuke when we meet him later. So I've talked a little bit about the combinations. I suppose the most obvious difference between Samanosuke and Kaede is the fact that Kaede completely lacks a gauntlet. So the enemies you defeat won't even drop souls because there's no point, you can't suck them up. And in fact, from saving the guard earlier, we got a soul absorber, which again, completely useless on Kaede. And I think maybe the idea that you get the first one while you have Kaede is so you don't accidentally use them, because they are very rare but also very powerful, so you want to save them for a few specific situations later on. And you can see me here just generally failing to get that one-hit kill, but having an absolute blast just jumping around him and slowly wailing him down, avoiding the grab attacks. There we go, finally managed to get it up, pull it off. So it can be a little bit finicky, but Kaede is just so fast that it's actually arguably easier to avoid taking damage with Kaede. I know she's a ninja, so you know, kind of makes sense. And I suppose that's also why taking damage is a lot more punishing with Kaede. So not only does she have a smaller health bar, because we've not managed to increase it with the yellow jewels, but she also, and see, exactly there is why that ground stab attack is better. If that was Samanosuke, would have got hit. But because it was Kaede, takes a step back and gets out of danger like anyone with a brain would. So yeah, not only does she have a smaller health bar, but she doesn't have the same kind of armor as Samanosuke has, so she will take damage a lot quicker. And because she can't absorb yellow souls, which are the healing souls, the only way that she can heal herself if she does take damage is through herbs and through medicine. Now, those items are finite. You can't craft more items. You can use souls to upgrade herbs into medicine so they heal more, but you can't make them out of nothing. Whereas the enemies that appear will respawn, so it is technically possible to get yourself in a situation where you're screwed over because you've run out of health and you don't have any more healing items, although I think you would struggle to put yourself into that much of a shitty situation. Although I'm certain people have. I remember getting a memory card when I was very, very young for the PlayStation 2, and it had a save of Resident Evil Code Veronica, and this person has somehow managed to just use up all the grenade launcher ammo, all the ammunition, all the healing items, and hadn't killed a bloody thing. I have no idea how they'd managed it, or once they'd screwed themselves over that much, why they would save. Journal 5. At last I saw the world of the gods. I caught a glimpse of the demon world in the evil gate. The colours are truly astounding. No multitude of pigments could enable me to accurately paint what I saw. But I do not understand one thing. The gate is firmly shut now. Is the world of gods refusing me? With this fatally wounded body, I cannot open the gate or come out of this cave alive. But I want to look at it. I want to look into the gate just one more time. So yes, that is the final journal of our scribe, Seiryu, who seems to have gone completely lost at this point. I mean, he's mortally wounded, he's bleeding out, so he's starting to becoming a little bit delirious. So, Godspeed, Seiryu. Anyways, with Kaede, I guess the other major change is, well, it's not even necessarily a change for the characters, but more just their equipment. Kaede is having to resort to a basic weapon, similar to how Samanosuke was using just a basic katana at the start. You know, no magically enhanced weapons. For now at least, which means that her damage is definitely a lot less. And I suppose you saw that when I was trying to backstab the Red Samurai a little bit earlier and failing to get the attack off, that he took an absolute beating from just normal slashes before he went down. So you really do want to try and make use of the backstab one-hit kills to and there we go, beautifully done, if I do say so to my earlier self, to try and make quick work for him. Admittedly, because you don't get souls, whereas I wouldn't normally recommend doing it with Samanosuke because you're missing out on experience and whatnot. With Kaede, it's a lot more viable to just run past enemies. Again, later on, if you want to get the high rankings, you do need to kill a lot of enemies, but the few that you're going to be running past that are just a little bit too much for you now, it's really not going to make a huge difference. So if you do find yourself getting overwhelmed, or if you find that you can't quite get to grips with Kaede's controls, because admittedly you don't get an opportunity to control her for particularly long stretches of time, so it's hard to get into the control set and the mindset of playing as her, then just run past enemies, make your life easier. Now, coming into this side room is completely optional, but if you do want to pick up all the fluorites, make sure you pick up the one located on the barrels there. And coming up to this trick treasure box, you want to go middle once, right twice, and then left twice. And opening this trick treasure box will give you the sacred knife. So, as I alluded to like 2 minutes ago, the magical weapon. I mean, it looks kind of, it's glowing, it has to be magical. Kaede has, and this is the only upgrade that Kaede is going to get, unfortunately. She doesn't ever get the use of any kind of magic weapon. She doesn't, or I should say magic attacks, which, you know, makes sense because she doesn't have a means of regenerating her mana anyway. Instead, if you use the triangle button with Kaede, it will instead throw these kunai out. So, I mean, technically, Samanosuke does have ranged attacks with the bow and the matchlock, but it's a way that you can use a ranged attack without having to change to a different weapon. The downside, much like with the bows and the bullets that you'll pick up, is that they are in limited supply, but the game is quite generous, so the only time you should really be running out is if you're either using them extensively for like every fight, or if you get lost and have to backtrack a bit. But for the most part, I find I never actually run out, so you should be fine.
You. Wait a moment. I will help you out.
You are Kaede? Samanosuke once wrote to me that he journeys with a female ninja, Kaede.
So, you are...
could leave the castle and see the world with Samanosuke.
Princess Yuki.
I envy you.
You can go.
Forget about me. Escape from this castle with Samanosuke.
Do not give up, Your Highness. I will save you.
No, you won't.
What?
You can die here alone.
Princess Yuki! Princess Yuki!
So much how the first Ronaldo we came across serves as a kind of mini-boss, only to then become a common enemy later on. This is the first example we're going to see of these chameleon demons, and I have absolutely no idea what they're actually meant to be called. Even on the wiki I can't find a name, not even like a fan-made one. I think there's like more than one wiki out there, so I'm sure if I dig a little bit deeper maybe I could find it, but I have no idea if it's actually accurate. So I'm just going to call them the chameleon demons. And unlike the Ronaldo, who I think end up becoming kind of like a mid-tier enemy, not too difficult even though I had to deal with them, the chameleon enemies are very much higher tiers. They are not only very fast, with a lot of tricks up their sleeve, but they also have a lot of health and have a couple of combos attacks that can actually break through your guard. So they are huge threats, especially when mixed in with other enemies. So do your best to kind of dodge and take pot shots when you can, block when you can, and take him out.
Have to tell him.
So presumably during the time that Kaede was going through this, Samanosuke was having his own experience down here. Why he was brought down here and not just killed in his sleep, I would just put down to plot armor reasons, or maybe when bringing him down they couldn't touch him. I don't know. But this is a little bit of a lull before the next boss fight. You do have an opportunity to upgrade your weapons, so I would highly recommend, if you haven't done so already, seeing if you can upgrade your Thunder Orb, so the magical attack element of the lightning sword, the Shiden, to clarify anything, up to level 3. And the reason for that is that the boss we are going to fight very shortly, there's a couple of strategies of taking him out, but the most effective one I've found is to use the magic on him. Trying to hit him with normal attacks is very difficult unless you wait for very specific opportunities that you can get a hit in. And in all honesty, it's a lot more difficult doing it that way, so just follow this. I think it's also a reason why the game kind of makes sure that you have, or at least heavily incentivizes you to have the holy armor come into this fight, as otherwise it'd be quite difficult to know which Samanosuke is you. So the Stylado that took out Kaede earlier with the gut punch is now going to fight you in kind of like a classical kind of samurai v samurai sword fight. And what you will find, as I mentioned before, if you try to attack him normally, he will usually block and parry most of your attacks. There is a very small opportunity to hit him when he's doing his own magic attacks, but in all honesty, the best bet is just to block everything he throws at you. Just huddle in a corner and just play very defensively. Every time he uses a magic attack on you and you deflect it effectively, it will block the shot off and you can absorb some magic, which you can then use to power up your own attack, and he is incapable of blocking your lightning sword magic attack. So just use that, and if you're at level 3, 3 combos is enough to take him out. and their Stylado completely living up to his title of Discount Samanosuke. So don't forget to make sure you use the magic jewel if you are able to successfully pick it up as you were playing as Kaede before carrying on. Might as well make use of it early on, where we'll pick up the evil plate, and also by opening up this box here, where a ladder has somehow fit inside, even though it doesn't open apart or bend in any way, that we're going to use the ladder that fit in that box to climb out of this well. Don't think about it. Interestingly enough, earlier on, if you had cut the rope here and weren't able to pick up the jewel before doing so, then it will be found at that bottom section there. So when I mentioned probably about an hour ago now that you wouldn't be able to pick it up for much later in the game, that's the point that you would pick it up if you were a little bit too hasty and just started to attack everything you came across. So, you know, sometimes it's prudent to be cautious.
So you have made it this far.
Beyond this gate lies the demon world. It's over. We will never be able to save you, Mamoru.
Samanosuke, what is this? We have to destroy that stone. Let's separate and find a way.
So that marks the approximate halfway point of the game, or at the very least the halfway point of this video. So with both Princess Yuki and Yumemaru taken to the Dark Realm, we now have to try and find some way to get in. So our first bet should be where Kaede just explored. So we're going to use our wind sword to take the archer out. Oh, that's so satisfying. Because if you'll recall, just before she went to the area with the molten furnace puzzle that she had to kind of move past, there was a door with 3 green pulsating, like sure we call them like molds on the wall, which we will obviously need the wind sword to open.
Hey, do not be afraid. I have information that may help. Hey, won't you go to the Dark Realm? There is no guarantee you will live, but if you do, great rewards await you. Okay, see you soon.
So that strange tiny man is a little bit of an enigma. The game never really explains why he's dropping down in a cocoon, why he exists, why he has the powers he does. He's just kind of there. But for gameplay purposes, he takes us to, well, the Dark Realm, as he just said, but not the same Dark Realm that we're trying to enter to continue the story on. It's like a separate kind of realm. I don't know if maybe the idea is that now the Dark Realm has opened, he has powers to pass over. I'm probably thinking into it a little bit too much, but he essentially serves as an entirely optional challenge mode. And I say optional, there are some very useful things you can get from doing the challenge mode. Namely, if you want to unlock the Oni Spirits mode, you'll need to collect all of the Fluorites. And there are a few of those to be found in the Dark Realm. So you will need to do that if you want to unlock that special mode. However, the Dark Realm is probably the hardest challenge this game has to offer, and as such there is, well, there might be a reason to do it now, were it not for the fact that the main rewards you get for doing the Dark Realm, I mean, there's a couple of herbs and bullets and shit, but you know, that's pretty minimal. The main rewards you get are the Fluorite, which unlocks the Only Spirits mode, so you're not going to be able to make use of that until you've already completed the game, and an item called the Bishaman O, which is a key item to unlock a very special item, but not until right at the end of the game. As such, there is absolutely no reason to do the challenge until just before we enter the Dark Realm officially, which kind of like signals like the end section of the game. Because we want to be as geared up as we possibly can. We want to get all of the yellow stones to make sure our health is as big as it can be, all of the blue stones to make sure our magic's big as we can be, and we want all of our weapons to be either fully upgraded or as close to fully upgraded as we can. So I wouldn't recommend doing it now. You can if you want to, there's nothing stopping you, but you might as well wait a little bit longer. Get some more pink souls, upgrade your weaponry a little bit more, and it just gives you more of an advantage when you come to take that area out. For now, however, we're going to continue through to West Prison, and I think this is kind of a good exemplifier of why I upgraded the magic attack first. Not only because I think that's the most useful aspect of it. I mean, I'm usually just using the lightning sword for a lot of it, and you tend to do pretty good damage anyway. The extra damage doing normal attacks is nice, but you usually use the normal attacks for like these sort of enemies, and then the magic attacks for the stronger enemies that are the ones that are going to cause you a challenge. So, I mean, admittedly, because I haven't upgraded the lightning sword here, as you can see, we've just sliced him a few times and stabbed him on the floor, and he still wasn't dead. So these are kind of the upgraded ninjas. I believe their exact names, according to the rookie at least, are the Dark Crows, and the normal ninja demons that you come across are just meant to be called Three Eyes. But I just call them ninja demons and elite ninja demons because it doesn't fucking say what they're meant to be called anywhere in this game, and that's what I'm going to be referring to them as. So, as you can probably imagine, with them being pretty much just a straight upgrade of the previous demon ninjas, they're just stronger in almost every way. They do have kind of a mimic ability, so they can dodge your attacks even if you should have hit them, if you had them to rights. They have more health and they do more damage, you know, just up all the stats. And yeah, we can try and not get tagged by some of the archer zombie demons around here, which can definitely catch you off guard, especially with the fixed camera angles. It's only if you've played through it a few times and you know what to expect that you're like, okay. As a rule of thumb, when you come through this particular region as Samanosuke, try to have a ranged weapon equipped and then just aim it. And if he looks like he's aiming up, there is an archer there, so take them out. And yeah, bloody bastard tagged me. So there are some of the round shields here that you can use to kind of hide behind. Quite interesting, actually. I was looking into it, why the Japanese warfare, they tended not to use, yeah, we can just use his buddies to take him out. Why the Japanese didn't tend to use shields as kind of European knights would have done. And the explanation is way too long for me to go into, but the answer was in a very layman's term kind of way. They preferred more stationary shields, and that's why oftentimes you can see these kind of wooden screens that they would use to cover most of the body whenever they used to go into archer warfare. So yes, the gauntlet has been upgraded now, and that is so tier 2, much like with our weapons. We can also upgrade that to tier 3 later on, which I don't think does anything other than the fact that you can suck souls in a little bit quicker, so you're not obviously in the middle of a fight standing around so exposed for so long. You can get the souls in your gauntlet quicker and go back to fighting. It doesn't provide any other bonuses outside of that, I don't think. If anyone can correct me, by all means leave a comment, but I did research this quite extensively before making my walkthrough, obviously, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't do anything. Like, I don't think it means that you have more souls, or like you suck in more souls, you have a bigger multiplier or anything like that. It just, you do it quicker. So kind of a pointless upgrade, and I think that's why it just happens naturally, and there wasn't much of a fanfare about it, because really it's not that helpful. So yeah, knock that, or cut the rope to that. I'm not even sure that's meant to be. I'm guessing that's kind of like the wooden shields I was referring to, and it'll take them out. So if you thought one of the Minotaur demons or Barabuza were a big enough of a dick on their own, try a whole gang of them with Big Daddy. Except they would be a problem were it not for the fact that there was the magic well we came just before coming in here, and with which we can go and recharge up as we're leaving again. So literally there is no point not to use up all the magic you possibly have and just go to town on these guys. You can refill it up again, so just absolutely annihilate them. Going close with the wind sword to hit all of them. If you get them in a line like that, use your fire sword to take them out. And when it's just Big Daddy by himself, just go in and absolutely eviscerate, slice to ribbons, decimate all the other pseudonyms you can think of. Synonyms, that's the one, to cut them to pieces. And I suppose one thing I should have mentioned, actually, getting too far ahead of myself, is earlier with the area where you needed the tier 3 wind sword to enter, we picked up something called the vision staff. And you may have noticed that in the previous room there was a sparkling item where we knocked the shield on wheels down and ended up being a fluorite. And previously I mentioned that the fluorites don't have any of the shining glimmers that you associate with other items, which is what makes finding them a pain. The only exception to that is when you have the vision staff, it will allow you to see them. So really what the game is kind of suggesting at this point, now that you've picked up the vision staff, is to go and backtrack to all of the areas, like for instance the cave that we originally went through to come here, like after the very start of the game, before we even got to Inabayama Castle, and then you go and backtrack through all those areas and pick up the fluorites that way. Obviously if you've been watching this walkthrough, you wouldn't have had to do that, because that's a pain in the dick, and so we don't have to do that. And I think that's where like the 600 kills you would need to get the S rank is kind of meant to come from. Like, you're not really meant to know where the fluorite is at first, because it's a little bit unfair to do that. But I mean, if you're playing for the second or third time, you've already gone through them, you're gonna know where it is anyway, so it's, it's a bit of a moot point anyway. So picking up the decorated sword and the head key, we are done with the West Prison as Samanosuke, and we'll be moving on to a new area, in order to get to which we have to go back to Inabayama Castle, which admittedly is not the best signposted, because what will happen, as I was mentioning as we came on the way here, make sure you have arrows to take out those roof archers. Just in general around here. It's a good way to see if there is an enemy coming down if you hold the R1 button and see if Samanosuke changes his stance to look towards an enemy. You can kind of give a little bit of an advance warning. But yeah, it's not the best choreographed or telegraphed area. Essentially, when you go back to Inabayama Castle, we're going to find a soldier who's being attacked by a demon, and that demon shows himself by breaking through an area that was previously inaccessible. So as you go there, the cutscene will happen, you can use that to figure it out. And I guess the mindset from a game creation point of view is, okay, we've given you the vision staff now, we've kind of hinted that you should go and look for the fluorites, so maybe you're going to do some backtracking and you'll find it that way. But, they probably could have done a little bit more to let that be just a tiny bit more obvious than run around and wait for an event to happen. So we're going to use the head key in there to open up the back way, which is going to give us access to the matchlock, which is a very early kind of gunpowder weapon that they used. So with the bow and arrows, we can use normal arrows and fire arrows, and with the matchlock, we can use normal bullets or bursting bullets. Both of which, I mean, you would have had a certain amount of shrapnel rounds back in the day, but the way they work is very unrealistic. But I kind of give Onimusha a bit of a pass I should say. I think I've talked in some of my other videos how I fucking hate whenever people show fire arrows, because fire arrows were very rarely used. There's only even very specific situations, and even then you had to prep for them. And the reason for that is that if you set a normal arrow on fire, even if you like douse some like something flammable and wrap it at the end of the arrow, the actual act of letting an arrow loose from a bow, the sudden increased velocity would actually blow the fire out. So the only way you could actually get fire arrows to work was to either massively decrease its range, power and penetrating power, or to use like specialized arrows which again have shorter range. So the idea that they would just set something on fire and fire them, yeah, it wouldn't happen, because you'd let loose 100 arrows and maybe if you were lucky 1 out of 100 wouldn't get doused immediately after the first volley. But in Onimusha, you make fire arrows by spending some souls to upgrade it to a fire arrow. So you're not even setting it on fire, it's like magical fire, I'm gonna assume, because again we've had to use souls to upgrade it. So I give it a little bit of a pass that you could argue there's some magic element going on, and the same with the matchlock bullets to the burst bullets. The burst bullets work in some very over the top and OP ways, and I'm just going to assume magic was involved. That's the best explanation. So as I mentioned before, where you're meant to go at this point is not the best choreographed. So as you come down here, you'll see this little cutscene where a soldier of some description, presumably some kind of Ashigaru, is being attacked by these new type of enemies, these insect ones. And if you go to speak to him, he'll say there was a monster with a large axe down by East Garden. So the game's assuming that you'll come down southwards, come into this cutscene occurring, and then by talking with the soldier you get a hint that you're meant to go over and fight the giant axe guys at East Prison to get the decorated sword to progress through, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because if you'll recall, when you're playing as Kaede and going through the east section, you see a door that's being protected by 3 of those green nodes. So straight away, you know, you should know, okay, I'm going to need to come back here as Samanosuke, use the wind sword to get through. So yeah, it's coming down here isn't the best choreographed, but I suppose if you do a little bit of exploration, you'll come across it. And to be fair, the riddle box that you would normally acquire before crossing over the bridge into Inabayama Castle, you wouldn't have all of the parts to open it until around about this point in the game. You've picked up all of the volumes to be able to figure out how to actually open that. So I'm presuming it's the game expects you to come back to like backtrack a little bit and then find it, but you know, it's not too difficult. So coming through here, you want to get some kind of ranged weapon. Doesn't really matter if it's a bow or the gun. I think you might be able to get away with hitting it with the fire sword's magic attack. I haven't tested that, so I cannot confirm. But shooting the rope here will make this fall down, and we can go and collect a talisman. Talismans basically function as 1-ups. If your health depletes and you've not healed, it will bring you back to life. So very good items to have. Journal 6. This will be my final journal, I guess. As the bleeding from the wound does not seem to stop, I am barely managing to write this. For the one who makes it here someday, I offer you this. I have drawn a picture of how to open the gate to the demon world. If you can acquire these tools, then you must go beyond the gate. Remember everything you see in the supernatural world, and let people know that such a world does exist. Now, coming back to the area where we shot the rope to get the talisman, I'm almost certain they've done like a Mythbusters about trying to like shoot rope to break it. I mean, you see it quite a lot in pop culture and movies. I'm pretty sure even in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm pretty sure they shoot the rope at one point. I don't think it actually really works like that. Like, rope's quite tough deliberately, so, you know, it doesn't easily break. And unless the rope is incredibly taut, usually it just kind of absorbs the kinetic energy. I mean, if you ever try to actually, like, cut a rope, if you do, I don't really know what areas tend to still use rope nowadays. Maybe, like, if you do I was about to say arts and crafts, but some kind of like hobbies at home, or perhaps if you work on certain like fishing boats and whatnot, you might still make use, or just ships in general actually, you might make use of ropes like that. Yeah, try cutting those things. They do not break easily. There's a reason that they're used, because they're meant to be taut. They're not meant to break easily. But I guess with a lot of conventional like movies and games, it's just become kind of one of those tropes, so it just kind of exists. So we don't actually have to get up to the top of this tower, but there is a fluorite up there, so if you're going for full completion, I suppose you want to do that. And there's also a power jewel, so you might as well make use of that and collect everything. So you have to be careful moving up, because there's a few archers as well as just these normal kind of samurai, so actually trying to get a shot off is a little bit difficult. As you can see here, I'm trying to shoot the archer, but it's focusing on the blue samurai instead. So we're just going to stand under here, wait for him to get a little bit closer, and then just use our magic attack instead to take him out. So if you can't get a shot with a ranged weapon, then the wind sword is probably your best bet. So opening up the box here, we're going to pick up a magic jewel, as well as the power jewel and the fluorite on the roof. Now, when you're on the roof, I would say to be quite careful. And as you can see, I'm going to make use of the matchlock, which I've not really used. In fact, I think the only time I've used it up to this point was shooting the rope. And the reason for that is this place is absolutely littered with the elite ninja or dark crow type enemies. And they're all over the place. They're usually kept in bay by like these wooden panels here. But what makes them such a pain is that if you try and block with your weapon and you're not facing the enemy, then the block won't count. You can get stabbed in the back, which you'd kind of expect that to be the case. And considering there's so many of them all over the roof, chances are you're going to hear them throw some daggers at you. You're going to block, but you're not going to be facing the correct one, and you're not going to be able to orientate yourself quick enough to actually be able to block the attack. So considering the wooden panels along here are very useful at keeping them at bay, I find using a ranged weapon like a matchlock is quite effective at taking them out without getting absolutely sliced to ribbons, which you absolutely are at risk of having done to you if you're not careful. So that little detour has powered us up a little bit more, and as you can see from the bars, we are very nearly as strong as we can be. I've still got a magic jewel at least left to pick up. So we're just going to equip our wind sword and make our way around to the back. And one thing I haven't really mentioned actually is how the music changes when you get to this this kind of watery western side of the Inabayama castle. It's very... Up until the first one that we just listened to, there's a lot of tension to it. It seems almost more suited in a more horror-based game. And I know Onimusha has horror elements to it, but it is through and through quite an action game with horror elements as opposed to a horror game with action elements. Yeah, I suppose that works. And this kind of music that plays here, I mean, I think this is playing this as a kid. I mean, when did this come out? I would have been very, very young. Like when it depends when I bought the game actually. I've probably bought it a couple of years after the fact. I was probably less than 10 years old when this came out, and I think this is probably the game that first started my weebness. This and the sequels. Onimusha 2 was the one I ended up playing the most, and is the one I'm actually having the most difficulty making a walkthrough of, just because there are multiple paths you can choose through it, because you have like different companions that you can have, and as such you would need to play through at least like 3 or 4 times, I think, to unlock like all the little cutscenes you have. I've been trying to figure out how to do that, like maybe play through it multiple times and then splice the footage together. Still working the logistics of that particular problem. So at some point, hopefully, I will be able to bring it up once I figure out the best way to make a walkthrough of that. But moving to the back, I do like the fight you have here. So there's 2 of these chameleon guys, and even with our very, very powered swords, they are a massive pain. If you want to use some of your magic to take them out, that's absolutely acceptable, because as you can see, I'm trying to trying to fight them with the wind sword here, which is probably not the best idea. I probably should have switched to the lightning sword, but I wanted to, you know, try and show it off a little bit. That's the excuse I'm going for, at least, because it's been I've used the magic attack quite a lot, and magic attack is very powerful, but it as a weapon I tend not to use that much just because the damage isn't there, and the increased crowd control and increased speed over the lightning sword I find isn't enough to warrant it. So moving forward here, as we can see, there's a rope bridge here, and because it's a different texture, you can kind of guess that we can cut it down. So move across it to get the blue samurai to start making his way across you, and then cut it down. And the easiest kill you will ever have, and then just take out the second one, rather than trying to fight both of them at once. So behind the waterfall is a trick treasure box, and probably the hardest one in the game. So we're going to go bottom left, top right, bottom right, bottom left, bottom right. And sorry if I sometimes sound like a robot when saying that. I'm just trying to make sure it's as clear as possible. Like maybe you have it on a separate screen, or you're playing it on your phone because you're trying to figure out how to open the bloody thing. And opening that trick treasure box will give us the great armor, which looks pretty much identical to the original armor. And I suppose it's just to give him his classic look back. So the final riddle box is in here. So for this we want to go 3 and 6. There isn't a third part to that. And that will give you the magic jewel, which should now make you pretty much as strong as you're going to get. And make sure that you absorb the magic that's placed here, because we have quite a tough fight coming up after the fact. So, well, use the magic sphere to make sure you absorb all the energy you can, and enhance any weapons you have before proceeding onwards. So, I mean, personally for me, I'm going to make the lightning sword tier 3 first, because as I've mentioned before, it's probably the weapon I end up defaulting to the most. Unfortunately, not enough souls to upgrade either of the other weapons to tier 3, but we should get there pretty soon. And well, you would hope that that's the case, because we're nearing the later portion of this game. So make your way down, make sure you pick up the fluorite before you go on the boat, because again, horrendous amounts of backtracking if you don't, and use this to sail across. So once more, we're given the control of Kaede to go on our little mini adventure. And unfortunately, these insect-type demons are an absolute pain, because although they're a little bit slow and, you know, they tend not to be something that really hits you, but they're quite tanky. You can't do the jump over instant kill attack on them just because there aren't really many vulnerable points. So they're just annoying to take out because they take a little bit of a beating. So we're going to use Kaede's Shinobi kit, so, you know, basically just her version of the lockpick, to go through the alternative path and play for her. No idea what she's been doing up until this point. Maybe she was chasing some kind of lead and it just turned out to be completely fruitless, so is what it is. But we're taking control of Kaede and her very tiny health bar and very tiny waistline. Apocalypse 2. Our demon king was born in the confusion when the earth was created, and has lived in the deepest and darkest places underground. all demons are created by the Demon King. The Demon King shows his holy snake-like body only when and where the ceremony takes place. No one knows what he usually does. Demons remember, no one can disobey the Demon King. The holiest spirit of the Demon King is the one you have to learn from. So as much as I like playing as Kaede, and I do find her control move probably more enjoyable than Samanosuke's actually. It's a shame that, well, I suppose that's kind of why Onimusha 2 became a thing. There's multiple characters in this second one, and they're given a lot more love, I would say. There is a ninja type character in Onimusha 2 who is capable of absorbing souls. So, you know, I suppose they kind of learnt the lessons. Maybe there was people who liked playing as Kaede but didn't like the fact that, you know, you weren't able to absorb the souls and whatnot, because it seemed like quite an integral part of Onimusha. But one thing, and I also especially like the Ninja v Ninja fights, they do look cool as fuck. But there is definitely a rule of cool with her, because as we see when we fight, she's using what's known as a reverse grip. So instead of holding the sword so that you can extend it, she's holding it like closer to her body, almost like how Mike Myers would hold a knife if he's trying to stab someone. And if you're anyone who knows anything about martial arts, particularly with like certain weaponry and how they're used, I know there's quite a few good YouTubers that kind of explore it. I think the ones I tend to watch are like Skillingram, Shadowversity. There's a few others whose names elude me now, apologies. But, you know, I'm quite into my history, especially historical warfare. And what you know from people who do kind of not just recreations, but actually spar with weapons modern days, is that reverse grips are fucking terrible and should never be used. They make absolutely no sense from a practical point of view. And I know people have tried to defend them just because, you know, they see it in movies, they see it in anime, and it looks really cool. But there's no point to it. In the same way, I think if anyone's quite into watching MMA, when you try to elbow someone, you don't usually bring the elbow down, because all you're doing is bringing your body weight down and only a small amount. If you want to go for an effective elbow, you throw it almost like you'd throw a hook. You throw your body into it and come across on a lateral movement, because that's where all the power comes from. Things are a little bit different with a blade. You don't need much strength to pierce something, unless you're trying to pierce through armor, in which case a blade isn't really going to do the job anyway. You want to try and look for the small sections in between the armor where you can actually cut through. And if you're trying to actually go through armor, you want a blunt weapon like a warhammer or something. So using a reverse grip, not only are you not able to hold it as effectively, you're limiting the range with which you can use it. And if ever, I think there's a game that came out not too long ago called Hellish Quartz, which, I mean, people say it's the most realistic sword game ever. Obviously, it's still not, you know, 100%, but it's definitely a lot more up there than other games. Like even For Honor. I don't play For Honor, but I know friends that do. And there's like one scene where you see like I think it's like a samurai type character like decapitating a European knight, and it's like, bro, it just went through the armor. Like that would do fuck all. So I know in the same way that you can block arrows like this. So yeah, long story short, I probably don't have the best explanation, but well, you're limiting your range, you're making it more unusable. Like you have to get in closer to make use of it. And if you maybe had like kind of a hook weapon to try and like pull a sword out the side, and I think there are like certain parrying daggers that do that, it makes sense. But I mean, as you can see with the way she's guarding it, because it's so close to her body, if you hit that blade, the blade's just going to go back and stab your arm. Like you would need greaves to stop doing that, at which point you're using the greaves to protect you, not the blade. Why would you do it? So I mean, there's people that can explain it far better than I can, so if you're interested, you know, go looking up. But yeah, reverse grips look cool, not practical. So coming here, we have another treasure box, and the way to do this one is left, middle, right, middle. And from that we get the decorated arrow. So not the arrow we need to actually get into the dark realm, but an arrow we need to get the arrow that we need to get into the dark realm. Basically, we're going to be using the same kind of method that we used to get the shotgun in the very original Resident Evil, where we'll take something that replicates it to not activate a trap. Although the trap here isn't as exciting, it won't squish you and make a dual sandwich. So come out here, you don't have to fight these guys, but you know, a few extra easy kills just to pad the meter for the rankings at the end. So go into this room that it looked like I missed, which I totally didn't. And we're going to move around to the back and we're going to Indiana Jones this shit. So take the great arrow from the dragon statue, which will move up and cause this little lock, which, I mean, you could easily break that off. Even someone as small as Kaede could probably just kick that off. And then we're going to put the decorated arrow in, which will allow us to actually leave the room. Also opens up this small little black box from which we are going to get our green key, which will open, well, the only path that we've not yet taken. So it's just another way of signposting, really, where we need to go. I'm also assuming it's kind of a case of the way triggers are set up in, you know, slightly older game. I mean, this was PlayStation 2, so around 2001, 2002, I believe. It probably would have just been a case that if you got to that point, it would take you on there. Like, maybe they weren't able to make it actually trigger whether or not you had the item. Or maybe it should just be a case that it's easier for the players to understand that way. So there's just a few little tidbits of resistance running back through. And we're very much finishing up the last portion of the Kaede section. So just make your way down to the ladder, and then you should find a boat by the river. And we're going to use this to go and join Samanosuke.
Watch out!
For a mere human. But you are late. Our dark ceremony is starting. Yumaru will be sacrificed in front of Princess Yuki.
No!
Princess Yuki cherishes Yumaru. If he is sacrificed in front of her, her sorrow will peak, making her blood its most delicious and strongest, granting our Lord Nobunaga more power when he drinks it.
That is why you took them? You will suffer for that!
Now, my dear friend, consume that human over there at once!
So you'll be doing quite a lot of switching between weapons fighting Hecuba. As you can kind of tell, she's a giant flying wasp. So when she's up in the air, you're not going to be able to target her with conventional weapons. So the best trick to do this really is to, first of all, get your wind sword out. You should have absorbed as much mana as you could before you got here, so you should be completely filled up and everything. So you want to use your wind sword to ground her, and then change to the lightning sword to do as much damage as possible. There's a few seconds when she's on the floor, so it gives you a little bit of time to get the damage in. And using the wind sword also has the added benefit of taking out the smaller insect-like creatures that tend to roam around. So it's both good for grounding her as well as getting a little bit of crowd control. And if you're lucky, she'll drop a little bit of mana, so you can do it several times over. Once you've exhausted all of the mana, the best bet after that point is probably to switch out to your matchlock to finish off the last little bits of health that they might have. If you find yourself getting cornered a little bit, I do find that the fire sword is quite good for a little bit of ground control, and Hecuba herself is not too considerate of her little demon babies. She will aid you in taking them out. So if you just like go to a corner and block, you can end up protecting yourself against everything. And just equip your weapon if you don't have any mana left and finish her off.
I ignited the gunpowder! Hurry! Come on!
Kaede! Hang on, Kaede. Rest here for a while. This nightmare must end. Now! Princess Yuki, Yumimaru, will save you.
So we know we're entering the final portion of the game because the dramatic epic music starts playing. And this would probably be the best point to go into the Dark Realm and do that whole side quest if you want to. I mean, it is completely optional, but if you're interested in getting the best ending, and more importantly, if you're interested in unlocking the Own Spirits minigame, it's going to be required, as there are certain fluorites in a couple of the rooms. So make sure you enhance all of your magic before going in, and then speaking to this strange little man here. So the Dark Realm is basically like a gauntlet type challenge. There are 20 different levels of increasing difficulty that you have to take out. And the first level we're going to be fighting is just 10 zombie samurais, so nothing too difficult, just, you know, wail through them. I also find that doing the Dark Realm is kind of necessary for getting the best ending. I mean, technically it isn't, but in order to get an S rank, you need to defeat at least 600 enemies. You need to finish in under 3 hours, and you need to absorb at least 55,000 souls. And I find getting to that quantity without going through it is pretty difficult to do. In actual fact, in this particular playthrough, I had to go through the Dark Realm twice to have enough kills, because as I kind of mentioned earlier, because we're going very much straight through the game and not having to backtrack too much, the amount of enemies we come across is actually quite minimal. I found I had around just over 300 kills, and then if you go through the Dark Realm, each time there's 147 enemies going through all 20 levels. So you'll notice I edited it out the second time I went through it, because I didn't think there'd be any point showing it through twice. So you'll notice when I finish the Dark Realm here that the amount of souls I have suddenly jumps up, because the second time I went through it, I edited it out, because you don't need to see that. If you've seen it through once, you know what to expect, and it's just, you know, just padding at that point. So level 2 is 7 of the ninja-like enemies. Again, not too difficult. You can take them out with relative ease. And again, this is why I mentioned trying to do this as like the second last thing. Just because you want to have your weapons upgraded as much as possible, because there's a lot of enemies to go through. So you want to give yourself the best advantage. I actually didn't upgrade any of my weaponry between the first and second Dark Realm. And the reason for that is you might have noticed earlier that my gauntlet got upgraded from level 1 gauntlet to level 2. And that occurs when you reach 25,000 souls. And then tier 3 is around about 55 to 60,000. I didn't want to upgrade it just so you know. You can actually see all the upgrade processes going on. And also if I went there was a risk it would have upgraded to tier 3. So usually if you go to enhance your weapon and your gauntlet becomes tier 3, you know you've absorbed enough souls to complete the game. And usually that's a good indicator that you've also killed enough enemies. So try to use that as an indicator. Don't go into the final Dark Realm until your gauntlet's been upgraded to tier 3, otherwise you haven't killed enough enemies. So level 3 that we've just beaten was just 5 zombie samurai and 2 red knights. The first time we started to mix it in, and then the next stage it's just 4 of these red samurai. Again, if you've upgraded your weapon, and I made sure to upgrade the lightning sword to tier 3 first, just so the average attack does enough, you can use space and take them out. I mean, usually I'd like to just use a magic attack, but as I've mentioned, this gauntlet is probably the biggest challenge the game has, so you want to try and be conservative with your mana if you can. That said, the powerful tools that we picked up earlier, for instance the 2 soul absorbers, and well, a lot of the medicines and herbs that we've managed to accumulate, now is absolutely the time to be using them. So this is room 5 ninja enemies and red knights. Again, I find when you're just facing red knights by themselves, it's not too bad, but if you find there's like a red samurai with other enemies mixed in, it can be a bit of a pain. So, and there we go, I think actually the first time in this walkthrough we've seen these kind of dual stances. So if you go to attack an enemy at the same time that they go to attack you, you'll have to end up being like locked into like the sword stance, which would never happen in a real fight, but you know, and you just have to mash an attack button. And I find if you haven't upgraded your sword, it's actually very hard to win those. I mean, even with that one, it was only just in my favour enough to block them. Like, I cannot button mash enough. Like, I get carpal tunnel syndrome before I can beat it. But yeah, how difficult those are is based on how much you upgraded your weapon. So if you upgrade your weapon, it's not too difficult to beat. So room 6 is just 12 of these spinning demons. Again, since it's just the spinning demons by themselves, they're not too difficult to take out. They're pretty low tier enemies, so try not to use up any of your magic if you can, and just hack and slash at them with your normal attacks. Again, saving the magic for some of the more difficult later rooms. Coming into tier 7, we have 8 of these insect-like demons, which I find are just such a huge pain, and they can kind of catch you off guard. I usually find that the fire sword sits just like that. I find that the fire sword is usually the best one for them. It's a nice big heavy hitter and also has that really nice wide weapon art to it, so you can hit several of them at a time. Obviously use whichever weapon you find most appropriate, but I just find the fire sword for these guys, especially because they're so heavily armoured, just kind of works a treat. You'll also notice that the deeper you go down, the colour of the arena will change. So the first 5 rooms are red, the next 5 are orange, 5 are green, and then 5 are blue. So you can use that to kind of divide it into quarters, and it just, you know, helps you keep track. There's so many rooms and you're fighting enemies that it can be kind of difficult to remember how far in you are. So this is room 8, and I find that the bow and arrow is a good way to deal with this. Also, I haven't really used the ranged weapons all that much, just because the ammunition is finite, so I wanted an opportunity to use it off. So this one has 9 of the spinning demons, and then 4 of the blue skull-like soul absorbers. And even with just normal arrows, you do enough damage to one-shot all of these. So, you know, samurai in ancient times, their weapon of choice was actually the bow and arrow, not the katana. A lot of their warfare was on horseback and used horse archers. So, you know, we're just going back to the Samanosuke's original roots when he was training. And we had just enough arrows to finish all of them off. Coming down to the 9th arena, you'll face these Barabusa type Minotaur guys. There's going to be 3 of them mixed in with 6 of the spinning demons. And as you can see, I was trying to hit the Minotaur guy with magic attack and accidentally hit the spinning demon next to him. A little bit of medicine to help us go help the arena go down better. So yeah, when I find if you're just facing one of these by themselves, you could probably do just attacking them normally, but there's obviously the risk of the spinning demons coming in, and they don't use it very often, but sometimes the spinning demons, as they spawn, they will immediately come out of the spawn spinning in. So that's why I wanted to kill the Minotaurs with the magic attack, just in case one was going to start spinning on my side and, you know, whack me in the side there. This one's actually an easier room to deal with. There's 3 of the Minotaurs, but they're mixed in with Soul Stealers, which, well, don't really pose much of a threat. They do have a couple of attacks where they can come in and like start like sucking you, but it's not something to worry about. So we're just going to take out the first 2 Minotaurs, take these guys out with the gun, get a hell of a lot of souls for countering them, and there should just be 1 more Minotaur coming out. And okay, I think I mentioned earlier we've had 2 soul absorbers. We picked up 1 as we was playing as Kaede, and that was the second one, which we'll make use of a little bit later on. And unfortunately, yeah, you can't block with the matchlock. Something that I completely forgot, but I don't think we've taken too much damage throughout most of this walkthrough. And I also realised I can't count. There are 4 of the Minotaurs, not 3, because there were 2 that we spawned with. So yeah, I can't count apparently. But just take him out, and that is room number 10 dealt with. Room 11 is just a bunch of Ronaldos, 5 I'm pretty sure actually. And the best way to deal with these, as I mentioned when we was in the basement, is to use the fire sword. The flame attack tends to disintegrate them, so you don't have to worry about them splitting. And also, as I mentioned, if you hold down the R1 button and push forward as you attack, it will do this kind of vertical slice. Usually the first attack of that will knock them in the back, at which point you can just stab them on the ground and they don't split off into too many. So the Ronaldo can be very easy to deal with if you have the right tools. If you end up cutting them in half and just making them multiply, then you can make the fight a hell of a lot more difficult for yourself. So try not to do that. And as you can also see with these guys, and as I mentioned with the basement, because of the way that they attack with their tentacles, quite a lot of their attacks can buy partial guard. Fortunately, especially because we have the great armor at this point, it doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but it's, you know, it's chip damage, and especially when you're in this kind of gauntlet situation, it can add up like that. So again, not huge amounts of damage, but you know, just little chip damage here and there can be a pain. So try to take them out quickly. Try especially not to let them divide, as you will find yourself being quite quickly overwhelmed if you do. Floor 13, I'm going to do everything I said not to, and this is how I, learned from experience. So floor 13 has a number of these insect-like demons, as well as the Ronaldos mixed in. So I start off by trying to use a little bit of ground control. Watching too much MMA recently. Some crowd control with the wind sword, and as you can see, I'm managed to successfully take out the first one, and I'm trying to do these vertical slashes with the wind sword, but it doesn't work. It ends up splitting them. So I go to town trying to take them out, and they just end up splitting again. So again, if you can, fire sword 100% of the way. Fortunately, they can only divide 2 times. So from the first Ronaldo, you can end up having a total of 4. I mean, arguably, if you're trying to get more souls, then making them divide like this will allow you to get more souls, but it's not really ideal. But I mean, I suppose this is one area that is quite good. By doing the vertical slice there on the Ronaldo, because of the double-ended blade of the wind sword, end up taking out the insect demon behind us, and we can just continue our assault. Again, probably would have been better if I just used a fire sword, but well, tagged again. I've taken a few hits from this. It's very, very hard not to. But I suppose it's a good showcase of exactly why you should be not using that. Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, it's a good lesson of what happens if you do fight that way. So floor 14 has 3 of these chameleon-like demons, which, if you've managed to upgrade the lightning sword to the 3rd tier, will go down in a single combo. And if you're I say if you're skilled and well timed, no, if you're lucky and happen to attack at the right time and do a counter, you can take them out in one hit and also get a huge amount of souls. I suppose I didn't mention that actually. If you manage to kill an enemy, I think you may have noticed going through this walkthrough, but if you manage to kill an enemy with one of those counter attacks, then they end up dropping a lot more souls, like a multiplier is added to what they would drop normally. Now, floor 15 is a massive pain in the dick, so I'd recommend using one of the soul absorbers you picked up. So we have 2 of these, and, well, there's only 2 in the game, so you have to be quite sparing with them. But if you open... Ah, it's so powerful. If you activate it, it'll open up this ring, and as long as you are absorbing with your gauntlet, any enemies inside that ring will die immediately and offer you their souls. I have to admit, I haven't actually tried it with bosses, but I'd be very surprised if it worked on them. So the best way to use them is probably in these situations. And as we can see, we clear out floor 15. Okay, well, we clear out most of floor 15 and make it a lot easier for us. So we still have one saved up for one of the later rooms, and then there's only one of these chameleon demons left. So the chameleon demons, I find when you fight them one at a time, aren't too much of a problem. It's when they're mixed in with other enemies, just because they're very fast, they have a lot of unpredictable moves, and if you're dealing with other demons, it can be quite hard to keep track of them as well. So anything you can do to mitigate that is probably a good idea. So room 16, and we're on to the home stretch now. Just the last 5 rooms, as you can see, everything's in the background turning blue, is filled with 7 of these elite ninja. So, you know, basically just a straight up upgrade of room 2, which was filled with 7 of the normal ninja. If you have any kind of AoE magic, like the wind sword, kind of useful. If you can try and group them up, especially, and take several of them out in one go, quite useful. I actually find the wind sword is kind of useful in that situation, just because you can hit people to the left and side of you with the double-ended blade. So it, you know, it helps with the crowd control aspect. Room 17 has 2 of the red samurai and 3 of the blue samurai. So what we're going to do is use these burst bullets, which are insanely powerful, and let us hit all of them in one go. So just back up a little bit so they don't get too close, and basically the matchlock is just a fucking shotgun at that point. And we have tons of bullets that we haven't used up until this point, so, you know, might as well show off some of the extra weapons and then just, you know, go to town on the last ones. Now, I find it quite strange actually that this gauntlet is probably the biggest challenge that the Onimusha, the main game, has to offer, which, even though it's the biggest challenge, still isn't that difficult. Yet, if you get all the fluorites from this, it'll unlock the Oni Spirits minigame. And the Oni Spirit game is fucking brutal. I have the guide for it on my channel, and it's only like 10 minutes to do all the floors. And that probably took as long as the main game, just having to repeat everything, because you have to be pinpoint accurate. There's a couple of rooms that even if you know what to do, you have like a split second to get it right before doing it. So, yeah, it's a massive pain in the dick. So this one probably didn't need to use a soul absorber, but I just fucking hate the chameleons. So this one has 4 of the elite ninjas and then 2 of the chameleons, and I just find that because they're all so quick, I hate fighting them all together. So I'm using the second soul absorber here. If you didn't, I'd probably recommend using it on floor number 20, because that's arguably the most difficult one. But I found that if I used it here in room number 18, then I usually pick up enough mana and whatnot to be able to take out the final few rooms without too much difficulty. So again, just my personal preference. Use it wherever you feel most necessary. If you don't use them at all, you don't have to use them at all. But, you know, if you're given the tool, you might as well make use of it. So room number 19 has 6 of these elite ninjas and 3 of the blue knights. So I find if you have any like AoE magic, like the wind sword here, you can take out the faster enemies, so you can get the opportunity to focus on the slower, more difficult ones. As I've kind of mentioned before, these samurai, if they're on their own, aren't too bad with correct spacing. It's when they mixed in with faster enemies that they can be an absolute pain. So I've taken out a few of them in the wind sword, and I also find shielded enemies are quite vulnerable to the fire sword attack, as the fire element, well, the fire aspect of it ends up going through the shield. As you can see here, if you let them accumulate too much, it can be a pain. And even with the tier 3 of the fire sword, not enough to kill an elite ninja in one go. I mean, I suppose that represents the fact that it is kind of an AoE attack in a straight line. And fortunately, that ninja there wanted to commit seppuku and just launched himself right into the lightning attack. So, thank you, Elite Ninja. I salute you. And room number 20, so on the home stretch now, has 3 of the Minotaur-like demons and then 3 of the Chameleon demons. So again, can be quite difficult, but I find the bursting bullets that we made use of earlier is a good way to take both of them out. Because, like I said, you just get a massively overpowered shotgun, essentially. So that's the first 2 Minotaurs down, and that's what we came here for. The Bishaman O, which is completely useless up until we beat the next boss, and there's a very specific key point where we can use it, which at that point is very, very useful. But there was no point to do this gauntlet prior to this point in the game because we weren't going to be able to make use of it anyway. So just 2 chameleon enemies left. So if you have any magic left, might as well use any of it up, because as soon as we go back to the surface, we're next to the mana pool, so we're going to be able to recharge it anyway. So anything left, just make use of all of that. And as you can see there, they survived 2 magic attacks. That's what I mean, they have quite a lot of health. I'm just going to go to the lightning sword, and I'm not quite sure what happened there. One of the chameleons was under the ground, which allowed us to do a stab down attack, which I have to admit, up until that point, I have never seen that happen. And for some reason, I don't know if it was a glitch or whatnot, managed to also kill the other enemy. But we're done, and we can spend all the souls we have on upgrading. And as I mentioned earlier, because we've hit over 55,000 souls, I think it's about 55,000, maybe it's only 50,000, but give or take around that, we've hit tier 3 on the gauntlet, which again doesn't do a huge amount other than the fact that we can suck souls in quicker, and there's very little left to do in the game, so kind of a useless upgrade, but it's a good indicator that you've absorbed enough souls and you've killed enough enemies. So we're just going to take the opportunity to upgrade all of our weapons to max for the final section. It's a shame we don't really get to use them a little bit more, but the game's relatively short, especially compared to the second one. Jesus, the second one is... I think that's why I played the second one so much. There is a lot more meat to it. So we're just going to upgrade everything just so you can see what they look like when they're fully upgraded. We're only going to get a few minutes of use out of them. And then any souls we have left, we're going to upgrade stuff. So upgrading a herb to medicine will require exactly 1 bar of the pink souls, which is 1,000. And then upgrading a bullet to the exploding bullet is a little bit less, maybe about 1/5. So about 200 souls, give or take. But with that all done, we are ready to carry on. So I'm just trying very hard at this point to conserve my magic, because we do have to face a boss when we enter the Dark Realm, so we want to give us every opportunity we can. So I'm just trying to slowly cut through his shield while backing off so that the archer above can't hit me. And yeah, with the tier 3 sword, even these stronger enemies tend not to put up a huge amount of fight. So we actually only have burst bullets left, so wait for him to get his shot out. Fail to aim at him because Samanosuke is a bit dense sometimes. And yeah, you can kind of see when it fires the way that burst is. There's like a huge area you can hit it. So I might as well just, use the ammunition we have left just to make the little journey to the Dark Realm easier. As you can see, yeah, absolutely devastating. 1-hit kill on the elite ninjas if they're at point blank range. I mean, even if they're a like super powered demon, you take a shotgun to the chest, you ain't surviving. We are not the bride in Kill Bill 2. Like, we cannot take a shotgun to the chest and be okay. So move forward, use the special bow and arrow we found earlier in the western side, and continue onwards to the Dark Realm.
Hecuman world. Impressive you've come this far, but ultimately futile since your journey ends here. Only demons can enter.
You! Why don't you go back to playing with your worthless little toys? I have no time for you.
What did you say? How dare you? A mere human mock me? Fine then. It's time for you to fight my greatest creation! Come on, Seven!
So a rematch with Marcellus, who we fought on the rooftop to originally get our wind orb. Start off with your fire sword and just unload with the magic attack, because that's going to pierce through his shield, and I find it breaks it quite easily. Once his shield's down, switch to the matchlock. If you're close enough, you can actually stun lock him a little bit, but every time you shoot him, he ends up getting knocked back. So I normally like shooting him a few times before switching back to another weapon, just so I can block, because he'll charge straight in on you. And then at that point, just absolutely unloading him with all of the magic you have. You will have had the opportunity to stock up on magic before you came in here. Hopefully you didn't use any on any of the enemies on the way. And if you just keep pressing the attack with these magic attacks, he's not going to get an opportunity to do anything. So although he's much improved from his first fight, so are we, and you can take him out very quickly. So that is the second Marcellus fight, and if you are now screaming at the walkthrough, you forgot the box in that room, yes I did. The only thing in there is some medicine, so we don't really need it anyway. So, but yeah, we got 20. So we're going to use the Bishaman O we got from the Gauntlet in the Dark Realm to open up these fingers. There is a mana pool in here to recharge mana, but we're not going to need to use it, because by using the Bishaman O and going in here, we have access to the Bishaman Sword, the most OP piece of shit short sword in the game.
What?
So as you can see on the side, there is a green, blue and red orb meant to represent the 3 magical orbs we've used thus far to get here. And the good thing about the Bishaman Sword, not only does it hit like an absolute truck, in fact we'll have an opportunity to demonstrate on a Ronaldo, 1 hit kill just demolishes them. Not only does it do that damage, but it doesn't need to use any mana for its magic attack. So there's no point not to use this for the final section of the game. And unfortunately, it does make it a little bit trivial. So weird kind of sack there, which will keep spawning Ronaldos. But I mean, they're a 1-hit kill at this point. And we did pick up the map, even just normal attack eviscerates them. So we did pick up a map for the Dark Realm, which is kind of pointless because it's literally 3 rooms big. It's just this long, winding, not really a staircase, is it? It's more of a slope than a staircase. Before we get to the final room, where we'll be fighting the Demon King himself, Fortinbras. And yeah, even the chameleon demons don't stand up. So there's 2 little bits of medicine here to help with the final fight, and then just press forward to stop the Dark Ceremony.
Welcome to our little ceremony. Come here, Nobunaga. Drink her blood from the grail of despair.
So as you would expect from the King of Demons, Fortinbras is significantly healthier than the other demons. That said, the Bishaman's sword is so powerful that it actually kind of trivializes this fight a bit. Not entirely, you do still need to, have a little bit of skill to him. But what I find is that if you just keep whacking away at him, it does so much damage that you can actually stun him relatively consistently, so that he's usually able to get one rotation of attacks off before he's stunned again. So he has a few attacks to look out for. Obviously the biggest one he's using is he'll kind of summon these pink orbs up, and it will make a pattern. So the best way to deal with that, I find, is if you hold down the R1 to make sure that you're constantly locked onto Fortinbras, and then just maneuver Samanosuke to avoid any patterns that he forms. Other than the pink attacks, he will also try and just swipe at you with his hands. And again, I find the best way to deal with this, just like this attack here, is just to block. He does two attacks, but there's such a big distance between them that you can block both of them without getting broken out of your guard. Other than that, he does have also this flame attack that he does, which if he is able to pull it off, then you just want to back off into a corner so he can't hit you. But if you're being quite relentless with the Bishaman's sword, you'll find that he doesn't actually have enough time to get the attack off. He can also shoot you with a laser eye, which you can dodge, and he'll grab you, at which point you need to mash the attack button, but he doesn't actually get any of those off in this fight.
Samanosuke!
Kaede, let's get out of here!
Samanosuke! I'm fine.
We cannot stay here any longer. Run!
Yumemaru!
There is no escape from me!
No! Forget about me! Go! Yuki! Kaede! Yume! Maru!
The demon's ambitions were shattered by the hand of Samanosuke and his friends. However, when Yoshitatsu Saito died the following year, his feeble-minded son, Tatsuoki, became the lord. At that time, Oda's army returned to Mino province and conquered the Inabayama castle, putting an end to the history of the Saito family. However, it is unknown as to whether demons were involved. After the downfall of the Saito family, Princess Yuki went to stay with a family friend, the Baron in Sakai province. His name? Sokyu Imai. However, in less than a month she would leave. With Sokyu's blessing, she left in a ship to see the world. On Samanosuke's advice, Yumemaru accompanied her on this journey. On the other hand, Kaede desperately searched for the missing Samanosuke, but never found him. In the following year, Mitsuhide Akechi employed her as his agent. She continued her job until she died 14 years later in a war at Yamazaki province. As for Samanosuke, no one knows what happened to him.
So yeah, this will say Genma Onimusha. It isn't Genma Onimusha. As I was mentioning before, a lot of the cutscenes were not working with my emulator, so I ended up having to get the credits from another video that I found online, and unfortunately the only one I could find was of Genma Onimusha. Genma Onimusha is actually kind of like a revamp, not quite a remaster, but as far as I'm aware, I've never actually played it, and I would like to at some point, but it's essentially just a more difficult version of Onimusha. So there's more enemies involved. They like really scaled up the difficulty, because Onimusha as a game isn't really all that difficult. The sequels definitely up the difficulty. Onimusha 2 I recall being significantly harder with much tougher boss fights. So as the series progressed, the difficulty definitely did ramp up. And it is one of the first forays into this kind of thing, so you're not going to get it just right on the first go. And also, I don't think they wanted to make it too difficult, because you want to get people into the game and enjoying it. And as that, Onimusha is a wonderful little game that I have very, very fond memories of. So it does end on quite a somber note, with Kaede dying 14 years later in a war, and Samanosuke never being seen again. That ending was actually retconned in later Onimusha games, so if you are a fan of the storyline, you found that to be a little bit too sad given what you've gone through. Rest assured, if you play the sequels, then it does turn out differently. But when they made the first Onimusha, they had no idea how successful it was going to be, so they wanted it to be a close-ended story, and then with it being as successful as it was, then it spawned so many goddamn sequels. And it's a shame that they don't make any more of them, actually. I think there was an Onimusha remaster not too long ago, but apparently there's some difficulties actually getting the licensing from it, because the character of Samanosuke Akechi is actually based on some Japanese model, and I think there's like some legal issues going on there. So yeah, apologies for it saying Genma Onimusha. I've spliced this video a little bit just to try and get it in, because I was just having so much difficulty with the emulator, but hopefully, it gave you an idea of this kind of game. If you wanted to go back and enjoy it, then it gives you an idea of what to look for. You know where all the Fluorite Locations are, and roughly how to deal with some of the tougher challenges. And Genma Onimusha I will get to at some point. And as I mentioned previously, Onimusha 2, I am working on that, trying to figure out how to actually bring it all together, because there's so many different side stories and whatnot need to put together. So my idea is to play through it multiple times and then splice the footage together so it shows all the different cutscenes that you can encounter, because you can't play through all of it. You have to go through it multiple times, which is again why I played it so much when I was little, because it had really good replayability. Plus also getting the S rank on that one is a bitch, because you have to do, in this one, to get the S rank, it's just kill 600 enemies, get 55,000 souls, beat in under 3 hours. In Onimusha 2, you have to have hundreds of counters, so those very quick attacks you've seen just as you attack when the enemy dies and you do an instant kill, you have to do hundreds of those to get the best ranking. So I'm not yet good enough. I have been practicing on it, but it's just one of many projects in the pipeline. But yeah, that is Onimusha. It's a wonderful little game. Very, very, very enjoyable, and hopefully you enjoyed watching me play through it and me rambling through it. And if you just came to watch this, find where all the Fluorite Locations were, I'll make sure they're in the timestamps. Hopefully they should appear at the bottom of the video, so you just quickly go to them and you don't have to watch through the whole area to find where those are. As I mentioned before, collecting all the Fluorite to unlock the Only Spirits minigame, and I'll try to make sure I put a link to that in the description here, because if you're struggling with anything, Only Spirits is what you're probably going to have the most difficulty with. I'm pretty sure certain with the remasters, like an achievement for doing it, and I had a and then like asking, oh, how has this changed and all that, because obviously this is the original version played through an emulator. So I think the core gameplay is a bit different, maybe like some of the mechanics or some of the graphics is a bit notably different, so that's where some of the comments from about that. So having beaten the game, you unlock a few little bits. There's a trailer for Onimusha 2, so that kind of contradicts what I just said about them not knowing if there was going to be sequels in it. But admittedly, Onimusha 2 doesn't involve the same characters. It's only in Onimusha 3 that we get Samanosuke back. So, you know, maybe that they will kind of go for more of an anthology approach. Completing the game will unlock also a panda suit for Samanosuke, which you can press the L2 button. You have a little, his head will flop up and down on a full panda suit, which I elected not to use because it kind of, you know, kills the mood a little bit. And Kaede will have kind of like a demon outfit, so she'll have like these little wings and a tail to it, which again, kind of not quite as garish as wearing a full panda suit, but still a little bit inappropriate. And obviously the only spirits game for collecting all 20 fluorites. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will catch you on the next video. I hope it was helpful, and yeah, bye bye for now.